Hey everyone, welcome to Sifted's Best of E3 2017 Awards right here on Sifted.net. How are you feeling, Matt?
A little worn out.
Yeah, I'm a lot worn out, boy.
It was a hard show this year.
Yeah, I finally got 7 hours of sleep last night.
Nice.
And then that's why the show ended up starting late. Our apologies to those of you on the live stream. It started a little bit late, but I had to get a couple extra hours. I came in for that Nintendo thing early in that morning. I was like a zombie. Literally like a zombie. I don't even know how I got through it. And then we did the master stream after that for like 3 hours. And then I went to the show floor. Wow. It's been a crazy week. I really hope that they reconsider starting E3 the prior Saturday.
Yeah, it was a little much.
It's too much. Like, I saw an editorial, I think it was by Eurogamer, where it talked about how there was nothing left at the show. I mean, I disagree with that because what we saw a lot in the press conferences was a trailer. And then at the show, they would go on people's stages and do live streams with, like, the gameplay. So I still think there's a lot of value in the show there.
Definitely value in the show, but I do think, like, if you watch the press conferences and then you watch the individual companies' live streams, and a lot of the outlets as well, but especially, like, the individual company, like the Treehouse and Sony's live, like, I feel like you get about as much as someone who went there and did it themselves, and you didn't have to kill yourself doing it. Like, it was, the coverage has gotten so good, and like the companies have gotten so comfortable with doing it that way that a lot of times on those streams you see what was shown in the theater people waited 4 hours for. And it's a different thing to see it played in front of you, obviously, but like I feel like, you know, for all the hype over the public getting into E3, I feel like the people at home get a real good E3.
Oh, they certainly do. The other thing I would say, too, is that I found, particularly this year, and it was kind of warming up to this last year, was that the best stream is Sony's stream.
Sony's really good at it.
One, the quality is impeccable. Two, the talent that they get on their stage is amazing. Like, they talk about a game, and they'll have, like, 3 or 4 guys from the game on there. They did a really good VR panel with, like, 5 or 6 luminaries from VR.
And they have everything.
Yeah.
Like, they put every game you can think of on. Even, like, the minor, more like...
the indie stuff. Yeah. And the other thing I would say, too, is years prior, maybe I would lean towards an IGN or a GameSpot stream because of the editorial aspect of it. But you watch, like, Sony stream, and Sid Schumann is great.
Yeah.
Like, he asks really good questions. And I don't feel like I'm watching a stream from an official publisher. I feel like I'm watching a stream from an editorial outlet. And
I kept being reminded of, like, watching, I was like, oh, yeah, that's how G4 did. Like, it felt like the way we tried to make the old live show.
Well, the other thing, too, is because it's Sony, it gets first dibs. So, like, on day one, like, when we were doing the master stream, I kept asking people on the stream, do you want us to switch to another stream? Is there another stream that you guys are watching that you want us to switch to? Never. We just basically went in between Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. And that was pretty much it. And they had all the best stuff on day one. They got all the first-party stuff.
Microsoft also solid stream, done by a lot of XG4 people.
Yeah. And it was only like 4 hours long, though. For whatever reason, it was shorter. But, I mean, Nintendo, if you care about Nintendo stuff, there's no reason to watch any stream but Nintendo's.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo didn't really take its first-party stuff to the other stages until it had already done it on the Treehouse Live.
Probably in part because the Tuesday's Treehouse had a bunch of announcements. Like, the 30-minute spotlight was not the whole story by any means.
Yeah. So let's talk about the show proper, because it underwent a big change, and we're seeing it now. This is B-roll from the show floor. Just for context, this B-roll was shot yesterday on Thursday. So it's a lot more empty. And this is like right at the beginning when the show opened, too. So this is not indicative of what it was like on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah,
so
Tuesday was the most crowded I have ever seen the E3 show floor.
Period. Yeah.
Ever.
Well, I didn't actually. I got my badge, walked on the floor on Tuesday, walked to Nintendo's booth, and then basically it ended and I walked out. And then Wednesday I was there for probably 4 hours, and then I was there all day yesterday. So Matt, let's talk about it. Now that they have allowed the public into E3, what are your impressions of it? Do you think it worked?
No.
No?
At least not not for me.
How do you really feel?
I mean, like after the show floor would close, like going to the parties or going to the the various hotels or stuff, like it was just angry industry people talking about how they couldn't get their work done.
Yeah.
And then like talking to a couple of the yellow badges, as they were called, because they had the different color badge, and watching some of like the interview segments of people, like the man on the street stuff.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people that went seemed like they were underwhelmed. Like that there wasn't anything. They there wasn't anything to do, because like there isn't anything to do. Like because if you're used to like real conventions where it's like there's panels and there's exhibit rooms and there's a dealer room and there's stuff to buy and there's stuff to see and
places to be a part of the community.
Yeah,
really.
and like, that just doesn't really exist. And like maybe it will going forward, but it just felt like the E3 Coliseum, they tried to kind of create something like that, but a lot of people didn't seem to know that existed.
Yeah, and they couldn't find it.
And they couldn't find it.
Like so far away from the show.
Yeah, when I was over at LA Live, which is where the E3 Coliseum was, several times I gave people directions to where the theater, because the signs for where it was like led you like in a circle.
Yeah.
Like there was no real way to find it if you didn't already know where that theater was. But like, it was, I feel like maybe going forward, if they continue to do this, they're going to have to make the show friendlier to non-industry people and basically like entertain them. Because like you hit points like, especially on Tuesday, where it was like I went up and I was like, oh, okay, I'll bite the bullet and get in line to play this. And like, no, line's capped. Like they were capping lines a lot. If you went to the Sony booth,
it would say queue is temporarily closed.
Yeah. And there was a sign at the Sony booth that literally said, "How do I get in line?"
I saw that.
Like,
yeah.
It was like, that because it was so chaotic that you couldn't see where any of the line, what was a line and what was people just standing there moving around or doing whatever. It was. I feel like they threw the gates open, but they didn't consider what that was going to do. Not just in terms of like, oh, it's so crowded and I can't do things,
right.
But in terms of like, if you're gonna let 15,000 civilians in, for lack of a better term, you got to make it a show for them too.
Yeah.
And I feel like they didn't do that very well.
No, I mean, it has a lot of work to do. I think the first thing I would recommend is the Tokyo Game Show, Gamescom model of first day and a half, maybe 2 days, press and industry only, then just crack it open completely to the fans, and make that during the weekend. So maybe shove it back a couple days, and that's not happening. They've already announced the dates for E3 for next year, which is like I think 12th through the 14th. But basically, we would go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday is for fans. And that makes it so much easier for the fans, too, because they don't have to take as many days off work to go. So they're not losing money by not being at work. It makes it easier for them to go. We're not in their way, so we're not taking up like any of the demo booths. We're not filling up the theater so they can't watch their favorite games. It'll cut down the lines. Right now, this line that you're seeing, by the way, is for Super Mario Odyssey. And it was every bit as bad, in fact, worse than Zelda was last year.
Far worse than Zelda, yeah.
I get to the end of the line, you won't hear it, but I actually asked the guy at the end, I'm like, you think you're going to get in? He goes, I don't fucking know. I was like, all right. But then I saw some report that said this line was only 2 hours long, which I cannot even comprehend. I mean, they do have a lot of kiosks for Mario, but
yeah, it was. There were more kiosks for Mario this year than there were for Zelda last year, I think.
And I also like that they didn't kind of have Zelda or have Mario cordoned away where, like,
you could just walk into the booth.
You could walk around and watch people play
it.
Whereas with Zelda, if you didn't wait in line, you couldn't even see people playing Zelda.
Yeah.
So I thought the design of Nintendo's booth was a lot better in that regard. And I think,
opening it up was smart.
And I think that's because they knew the fans were coming, and maybe some didn't want to wait in this crazy freaking line that you see.
But you want to see, like anyone who didn't get in Nintendo's booth last year, it's a shame because you didn't get to see that amazing
one of the
theming.
best booths ever.
Really good, and they did it again here with the New Donk City Casino. And like that was one of the first things I went to on Tuesday, and I didn't play, but I did go in to look around and see everything.
Well,
I mean,
that was the other thing
it's
too.
Amazing.
Is if you didn't want to wait in line, you could still check out Mario because there's like 60 kiosks, and if you walk around, it's like this guy's playing this part of the demo, this girl's playing this part of the demo. And actually, that brings up a good thing that I want to mention is the number of women at E3. It was amazing. I was so heartened to see so many girls, women, adult women, young girls, whatever, at E3. It truly shows how much our industry has diversified, and it
Well, and also, I mean,
it made me believe a little bit of the statistics I see these days. It says X amount of women play games.
I go to a lot more just general public conventions than you do because
Yeah.
of the panels I'm on, and I mean that's that's what it looks like now. Like girls are geeks, and pretty easy. Walk around like WonderCon or something like that. It's pretty easy to think. Yeah, it's almost 50-50 these days.
I was really impressed with that. Ladies, much props for coming out to E3. But I also feel like there was 15,000 people that they let in. I would guess probably 30 to 40% of those people would probably not go back next year.
I do kind of. I mean, I didn't go around interviewing people, obviously, but from like reading Twitter, and I feel bad for a lot of people that spent all the money it must have taken to get there and stay there and afford to be there.
$250 for tickets.
And yeah, even on top of that, you're talking about lodging and transport and everything. I mean, it's not like the old days because I went as a civilian basically. Back in the day when you could sneak in or whatever. I went like 99, 2000. I went then, and it was a different show. There was less people.
Oh yeah.
It was not a thing really the public knew about, so you kind of could like get in line and see things and
Well, there used to be developers on the floor.
Yeah.
Like I remember one of the first E3s I went to. I was in Nintendo's booth and I was checking out Eternal Darkness for the N64. Mm-hmm. That's what it was originally developed for. And Silicon Knights just walks up and says, "Hey."
Yep.
And I start talking to them, playing a kiosk. Like you never see that anymore.
No
like
one's
they
out.
may,
No one's out
if that publisher has a stage show, they may have one hour session where they sit on that stage and talk about their game. But you never see them out milling around like on the floor anymore. It's just, and I don't blame them. Like yesterday, I saw like Reggie out on the floor. And literally, he had like 9 bodyguards around him.
I believe it, yeah.
And you were telling a story before we went on air about how Bill Trinan and a bunch of people couldn't even make their appointment because they got bombarded when they walked out.
Yeah, it took them forever to just get out of their booth.
Right.
Like people were having a lot of trouble making their appointments. Schedules were in chaos most of the time.
The other thing I would say, too, is that...
Even walking around with Adam Sessler.
Oh, yeah.
People were every 5 minutes, 5 steps almost. People would be like, "Oh my God, it's Adam Sessler!"
Yeah.
And like we're used to that. I mean, that used to happen all the time, but it hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, his fans were there, and of course, he loved it.
Yeah.
But it was a noticeable difference.
Yeah. I would say in general, the people there were amazing. Everyone I talked to, despite the fact that they were waiting in lines for hours, they were all very nice. I ran into a handful of sifters that were great. I had great conversations with those guys. They all seemed to be having a pretty good time. I think the overall feedback from those folks was that they were having fun and enjoying themselves overall.
I mean, certainly
I don't think anyone of them regretted going.
No, I mean, certainly when will they go back? That's another question. Like,
yeah.
But like, certainly when I first went in on Tuesday, which was very shortly after noon. It was not. It was maybe closer to 1, but it was like it was still early in the day because the show floor opened at noon. It's just I was in the Microsoft booth and the Nintendo booth and Sony, and you could see all the people that had never been before, like looking around, like with that first E3 look on their face, and that was really cool to see. I just wonder after the thrill wore off, like.
Thursday was a lot more empty than the first 2 days.
Yeah.
So you could tell that there was a lot of people who had been like, "Okay, I've got my fill."
I mean, you can see if you don't want to wait in forever lines. You can see both show floors in a day, easy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you don't want to play a lot of games, you can see both show floors in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like walking through every booth, like zigzagging through each floor.
Longer now. I mean, it took me 20 minutes just to get into the Microsoft booth on Tuesday.
I mean, I was talking about Thursday. If there's not a ton of people, you could easily walk through everything and get like a lay of the land and at least kind of figure out what you want to go wait in line for and see in like a half an hour. Mm-hmm. It seemed like there were less publishers there this year. I don't know if it's true.
I agree with you on the feel of it. I don't know if it's literally true.
Yeah,
but
I haven't looked at the numbers
it felt smaller in terms of like what was on display.
Because like I said, on Thursday I did a whole walk of the floor, mostly to like shoot this B-roll or whatever, and I did it in like a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, something like that. It didn't take all that long.
I was a little surprised that Activision had a booth.
Yeah, they had a big booth.
Yeah, they had 2 games.
That was the most normal E3 booth I've ever seen from Activision. Because normally it's just this big wall.
It's a monolithic wall.
It's a wall with a door in
it.
it.
Yeah.
And you can't see what's going on inside. You can't go in unless you're press usually.
Yeah. If you're lucky, there's like a poster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this year it was like wide open with gameplay kiosks outside for both Call of Duty World War II and Destiny 2. Mm-hmm. And I like that too, that you could see people playing these games without having to have an appointment or go into their monolith that they used to build.
So there was definitely, some of these booths were definitely designed with an eye toward the public being able to see what's happening.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it's not the show wasn't there to give those people their money's worth in a lot of ways in terms of being an entertainment hub, because that's what you become when you open your doors to the public, the paying public. I think.
Yeah.
Like I was talking with some people who were thinking like, do they reopen Kensha Hall and make it like a more of a PAX-y kind of place to go?
They should.
Like
they
that
absolutely
kind of thing, you know?
should. They should have figured that out right away.
Yeah. I mean, there's still more room in that convention center to do some stuff.
That place is huge. And I don't know if you heard or not, but the ESA said that if the LA Convention Center doesn't upgrade its facilities, 2019 will be the last E3 at the convention center.
Wow. Where would they go?
Maybe San Diego, maybe San Francisco.
San Diego's not, no, they're not those places. I mean, they probably go to Las Vegas, I guess.
Maybe.
Las Vegas is the only place with facilities more modern and bigger than LA on the West Coast, I think. I mean, I don't think they go back to Atlanta.
Moscone Center in San Francisco is pretty...
Moscone's not big enough, and Moscone doesn't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like, that's the
You would think they would have bleeding edge, like, internet and stuff up in there. Because I think that's what the problem that they're having is they can't get a big enough pipe in for all this. I mean, everything in this place, including our phone, it's all connected.
All connected, yeah.
I mean, that is a huge draw.
And also that's a big change even from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where having your game online. Yeah, I remember like when they were showing World of Warcraft, like in like 2002 or 2003, they're like, yeah, it was a real big problem to have like a constant internet connection to show the game.
Yeah.
And now it's like everything has to have it.
Everything has to have it. Yeah, so we'll see. It would suck if they moved from here away from our home turf, but maybe the conventions. I mean, look, this is the biggest convention in Los Angeles every year. Mm-hmm. It brings more revenue into Los Angeles than anything that happens all year long in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think LA will do whatever it takes to keep it.
I mean, I think the mayor may get involved and be like, look, we can't afford to lose all the money that we're making off of this show. I mean, it is just like hundreds of millions of dollars that it generates for the city. So, did you have a good time overall?
I mean, I always have a good time because it's kind of a reunion of all the people I know. You know, so I'm there to see my friends on top of seeing the games, and like, so I had a good time doing that. I did not generally have a good time on the floor. It was very hard to see anything and play anything. Like normally, I kind of wander around, find stuff I want to see, and like that was just not possible this year. Like my normal tactics failed miserably in the new overcrowded E3, so I'm gonna have to like rethink my strategy next year, I think.
Yeah.
But I more or less saw like with my own eyes the stuff I wanted to see, which is really the most important thing for me this year because, you know, especially with all the 4K talk and all the graphical stuff, I feel like you don't get if you don't see that with your own eyes, you don't quite know what's up because you never know what the stream or the compression or whatever. So being able to see Forza 7 running in front of me was like was more important to me than touching it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I know how Forza
plays.
Yeah. So that was kind of the big. So and I did get through that again, like we said, because they did have the foresight to set most of the booths had the foresight to set it up so you could see what people were doing. Like, and that happened with like Microsoft and Sony as well. Like normally you have the kiosks kind of like back to back with each, facing back to back, and then there's like little aisles for people to play. And like if you have to walk between there, you can.
Yeah.
But now this year, like they had where people were playing, they had like them roped off, and then there was an aisle between them, so because they knew people would filter between the stations.
You can see it in some of this.
Yeah, and you can see that it's designed for people to filter between the rows of the stations and watch people play, because that was going to be basically the main way people, every time I try to get in a line to play something, they're like, oh, line is capped, line is unavailable. So like that was your way to watch stuff. And so there was, it's not like there wasn't any foresight to it, but I feel like they would be, the show would become a better value for a public attendee's money if there was more of an eye towards entertaining them and acknowledging that if you're not there to see industry stuff, you're kind of walking by a bunch of dioramas and then going out. Like there needs to be more to do.
And it needs to be more clear what more there is to do.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that the directions to get to Coliseum were not good. I talked to someone who was pretty much at all the Coliseum panels, and they said that there was only like 2 of them that had more than half of the audience full.
Yeah, there was no one there, I heard. I never got over to the
Coliseum. And one was
Coliseum,
Kojima, and the other one, I can't remember what the other one was. But yeah, they said in general...
There was a fire.
There was a fire on stage. Yeah. But they said in general that those panels were not full. And so to me, it's like you can't have something like that a block and a half or 2 city blocks away from the main event. You just can't do it. It needs to be on location somehow. So it needs to be more clearly explained how it works. Like when I walked in, first of all, what really disturbed me was that there was no security walking in there. They checked your badge, but they didn't check what was in your bags or anything.
That's true.
I'm paranoid now about being at places like this where there's, tens of thousands of people. And, I mean, these people were walking around with bags. Who knows what those people had in their bags?
Oh, yeah. The convention backpacks were out in force.
Yeah.
I got hit in the face with many of them. I mean, I don't know what's in those frickin'... It's like you're in downtown Los Angeles. They sell food and water here. You're not crossing the fucking Mojave Desert. Like, I don't know what you need a hiking pack for. But it's very inconvenient when you're standing in large crowds of people and then you turn, and then you just like...
But you can see what I did in this footage. Just like you walk around the edge. It's the only way you can make it around. And again, this is Thursday. It's not the day it was crazy busy. But I would say overall,
you gotta like triple this if you want to simulate Tuesday and Wednesday.
And that's why I didn't shoot it, because I couldn't on Tuesday and Wednesday. It was just impossible. I was getting beat up and like knocked around.
Yeah. And it's funny because like we've said before, like I think like the emptiness of Thursday is sort of what they were trying to combat with this, and it didn't really work.
It didn't. Well, that's because all the industry people are hungover and they don't go.
Right.
But I would say overall, I did have a really good time, and it's kind of the same reason that you mentioned, which is the people. I met a lot of great people in the 3 days, people that I didn't know before. Walking by with the camera, just people who would just smile at me. Or give me like a peace sign or a thumbs up or whatever. The vibe there was really good. Like you, I got to reunite with tons of people yesterday in one circle. It was myself, Brandon Jones, Daniel Kaiser, Jeremy Hoffman, Megan Rue. A couple of the other Easy Allies guys showed up. And we literally just stood there for 45 minutes and just reminisced and had a little mini reunion. And that stuff just doesn't happen since GT was dissolved. Like, I don't think we've ever been in all of us in a room like that. So E3 is good for that. Pachters Party was amazing, as always. There were just so many people there that I hadn't seen in a long time. For that stuff alone, I had a blast at E3. Then you toss in all the great games that I got to play that we're going to get to in a minute. And all the people I met on the show floor, getting to meet some of the sifters face-to-face for the first time, and kind of connect their avatars with the real face was great. And again, despite a lot of people saying there was nothing to do and blah, 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 everybody there was in a great mood, and it seemed like they were all having a good time. So I had a blast. Still.
Also, it is E3. It helps that downtown LA in that area has built up a lot to be an entertaining place.
Yeah, thank God there's a Hooters right across the street.
Finally. Fittingly, right where Devolver goes.
Yeah, Devolver's press conference. Boy.
I'm just sorry y'all didn't get
work of art.
I'm sorry you didn't get to be there when that company was called God Games.
Yeah.
And they had their ridiculous parties across the street in the parking lot. And everyone was just like, yeah.
They're the rebels.
Everyone like shook their heads and went, and then they went. And they went to the party. It was like,
yeah, it's great. So I had a blast at E3, and would you recommend people go next year?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to be ready for it to be. This was like. Crowding-wise, this was as bad as Comic-Con.
Take your 3DS or your Switch.
Yeah, be ready to sit, be ready to wait, be ready for things tonight. And, don't forget about the E3 Coliseum if they do it again, because it feels like if you wanted to see any of that, you could have. Like, it wasn't like, it wasn't like the Nintendo booth where it's like...
No, and it wasn't like Comic-Con where you had to wait in line like a day to get into a panel.
So, if you really have always wanted to go to E3, then you could do and who knows how long they're going to do this, so you might as well get in while you can.
Yeah.
But in terms of coming to the video game mecca, it's a pilgrimage to make.
Yeah.
But it's just not set, in the way that Comic-Con and a lot of those conventions are set up, where it's one part of the appeal is being seeing your idols and being in the Supernatural panel in Hall H, and oh my God, I'm this far away from Jared Padalecki and all this stuff. That might just be me. I don't know. But like, that's not really what it is. Like you're probably not going to run into Miyamoto, you know, on the floor
unless you catch him in that one trip that he makes every year.
Yeah, and that's if you can kind of weasel your way past the 14 large men
that are
guarding him.
Yeah.
So it's a thing everyone should see, but I just I always want to not be like too over the top about, oh my God, you have to see E3, because I feel like especially if you've gone to a lot of other conventions, there's not as much to do at this one.
Yeah.
But maybe that'll change next year. Maybe they'll make it a more, public friendly.
I will say this though, there were more playable kiosks on the floor in general.
Yeah.
And I like Sega. That's what prompted me to think.
Sega really did well, I thought. It
did do well. And what it did, you could tell
in this context,
that it made some decisions on the fly, because for both Sonic games, it had like the elaborate part of the booth where there's all the signage and really nice TV screens where people could play. But then if you kind of rounded the corner, it had basically just tucked a bunch of playable demos with like PC monitors.
Yeah,
it was like no frills.
Yeah, over by the wall, there's no signage. It was pretty much just tables and playable stations.
And that's totally fine. It was look, we just want the fans to be able to play these games. And I agree with you. You could definitely see the shift in focus, not from all the publishers, but from a lot of them, to say, okay, we need more opportunities for people to play our games here. So maybe next year they inch even farther that way, and it caters a little bit more to the fans.
Yeah.
And
there's ways to do it.
Yeah,
and hopefully they're thinking about it.
Yep.
Obviously people are going to have to figure. I mean, part of the thing with the scheduling and how everybody was missing appointments and stuff, like part of that I think is we've done this for so many years that everybody kind of has it in their head. It takes this long to get from here to here and here to there and there to that, and it's like that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
Like you got to readjust how long it takes to do things at E3 now, and that's an adjustment the industry has to make.
Yeah.
Especially if the ESA is not receptive to, if the publishers, because I'm interested to see what the publishers think about that, because there was a lot of complaining about it after hours.
Yeah.
And since this move to let the public in was in part ESA trying to convince publishers to not pull an EA and leave, like I wonder what that political argument will become over the next year.
And I wonder too, like this is kind of the first year that pretty much all the influencers, the YouTubers, were allowed in. Last year, some of them were allowed in. That was kind of like them just kind of easing into it. This year, obviously, anybody could just pay to get in there. And so there's a lot more people with tripods and sticks and cameras.
Oh, it was the year of the GoPro. It was, everyone, it was... I've always wondered, like,
selfie sticks.
Was this year's E3 one of the most, like, documented events ever?
Right.
Like in terms of how many videos of the Xbox One X sitting in that case are there?
Right.
Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Like not hundreds of thousands because only 67,000 people went, but like.
I mean, imagine if when a crime happens and the police are trying to find like surveillance footage or closed circuit TV footage for clues. If something ever happened at E3. Oh my God! There'd be like 800 angles of it happening.
You could reconstruct it in VR.
You could, you totally could, and you could like relive it or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be like a Batman Arkham Asylum thing. But it's like, if you want to know what the back of the Xbox One X looks like, you're covered.
Yeah,
you're good.
For
Trust
sure.
me.
But anyway, going back to what I was talking about with like the YouTubers and the influencers, I think we saw a little bit of what can happen when you give them responsibility. Because at EA, their press conference and their post-show was driven by influencers, and there were several just terrible moments where they froze up on camera, couldn't remember their lines, just started ad-libbing, and just totally screwed up. And then, I guess it was Wednesday night, one of them went to the Twitch party and just disappeared. Did you hear about this?
I heard about that, yeah.
So this girl goes to the Twitch party, and no one sees her again. She doesn't show up for her appointments the next day with publishers. She doesn't show up for, like, her live streams that she's supposed to be there for. So people are like, oh, my God, she's, like, dead. And her friends are on Twitter saying, oh, my God, we can't get a hold of her. Her family hasn't heard from her. She didn't show up today for work. She didn't make any of her appointments with publishers today. And the internet just went crazy, like, trying to help find her and whatnot. Well, then, like, late last night, she pops up on her Twitter feed, and she's like, hey, I went to a casino and played poker all night. Didn't tell anyone where she was. Didn't call her family or her friends. Blew off the whole next day of work.
Was that true? I heard that maybe turned out to be like a hacked.
No, that was true.
That was true.
It was
really
true. Yes.
She just disappeared and didn't tell any of her friends or anyone.
Yep. And
wow.
then was angry at people. She's like, "This is the worst day of my life. Like, thanks to you guys." She disappears, and people are concerned about her welfare. Like, I posted it on my Facebook and shared it. I'm like, "Yo, if anyone in the industry's seen this girl, like, her family's looking for her."
Yeah, everybody was talking about that last night.
Yeah, and then finally, when she reemerges, she's like, "Oh, I was just playing poker." It's like, you can't do that. This is a family.
Yeah.
Like,
and you missed your stream appointment.
Yeah, she missed her appointments with publishers, everything. The whole next day, blew it all off. And, they don't get it. Like, the gaming industry, believe it or not, no matter how big it is like a family. So when we all found out that she was missing, it was like red alert. Like, everybody jumped on and, like, banded together. It was just like when Marcus had his heart attack. And, like, we did the crowdfunding, and boom, just like that, they had the money for their medical bills. Like, that's what the industry does. And when everyone found out that something bad may have happened at E3, they're like, no, let's try to make this right. Let's try to fix this. So I think you're seeing kind of... there's still some people swimming against the grain, I guess, of the industry. And just some people that were just flat out not qualified to do what they were hired to do, which isn't their fault. But it was interesting to kind of see the first E3 where they were fully incorporated into it. A couple things like that go on. So overall, I think it was a great show. I mean, as far as like the games and the quality of the games and the ability to play the games, and if you couldn't play them, you could at least watch somebody else play almost all of them live. There wasn't a whole lot of subterfuge going on.
Because there have been years where like stuff just wasn't out there.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't get it into one of the theaters, you didn't see a particular game.
Yep. So I had a good time. All right, let's move on with the show proper. What is quickly becoming a tradition on Sifted for our Best of E3 awards. We're going to kick them all off with a segment we called 2 Up, 2 Down. So both Matt and I are going to pick 2 games that we are more excited for after E3 and 2 games that we're less excited for after experiencing them at E3. So Matt, what is your first up?
My first up is Marvel's Spider-Man.
Yep. They finally gave it a name. It's now called Marvel's Spider-Man.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Everything's Marvel's something. I mean, technically the movie's called Marvel's The Avengers.
Right, yeah.
Just in case you forgot
who
owns Spider-Man. But I'm
surprised your hype could go any higher for this, Matt.
No, well, I'll tell you a secret. Not a giant Spider-Man fan.
Oh, really?
I like Spider-Man,
Okay.
but like Spider-Man wouldn't like make like my top 5 really of comic book superheroes. And also I'm always skeptical about Spider-Man video games because some have been good, some of them have not.
Some have been bad.
Now look, I trust.
We have a friend who worked on some of them that were bad.
Oh yeah, I trust Insomniac. Obviously,
Yeah.
I was pretty sure about Insomniac, but like, I still needed to have it proven to me.
Yeah.
And the demo they showed at the press conference and at the show, I think, convinced me that they know what they're doing. It felt like Spider-Man. It is pretty much an evolution of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. Because Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions back in the day did kind of take an Arkham Asylum approach to how it worked. And you can see that happening here and kind of
It looks a lot like Batman at times, yeah.
But like Insomniac talked more
totally
about
fine,
it.
by the way.
Oh yeah, but Insomniac talked more about it and like how that most of it is going to be open world. Like the traversal, like you can catch up to the helicopter a lot faster if you're. But they wanted to show the traversal. There's stuff with Peter Parker, like playing as Peter Parker on the ground and stuff, which I like because the dual identity thing is key to the character, and I think that's interesting.
I also trust Insomniac to be able to pull that off.
Yes, exactly. Like I'd be worried if it was like Activision cranking out another yearly game or whatever. But like I feel like if Insomniac wouldn't do this if they didn't have a way to make it work.
Yep.
So I'm real excited about this game now. I was already like interested, but now I'm excited. Let's put it that way. So that one I would not have expected it to be a 1-up. At the beginning of the show, I would have been like, yeah, sure, Spider-Man.
I'm gonna get what I
cool.
expect.
Insomniac Spider-Man game, cool. But like, no, this one really made me. And I know like some people are not into it because of the QTEs and kind of all that. But I just feel it's really capturing the character, which is what I really ask from a superhero game.
The web action is what sells me. I mean, it's like every Spider-Man game, even the good ones, a lot of the web slinging just felt canned and kind of preordained. Not with this game at all. Like, you can actually get creative using the web. It's not like kind of this predetermined thing that... And Insomniac went on record this week saying that The web actually has to attach to stuff.
Yep.
It's not attaching to this magical cloud in the sky that follows you around like in the prior games. So there's going to be an added layer of realism there. I'm also really excited for this game. It showed great. It was worth the wait, I guess is a good way to put it. My first up is Assassin's Creed Origins. You did not get to play it at the show, right?
No, I watched a fair amount of it.
I mean, yeah, you didn't have to play it because literally Ubisoft just let everyone and their brother play this game. And so there was just streams and YouTubers putting up like 40-minute chunks at a time. Ubisoft was on every stage playing it live. So one, I appreciate that, Ubisoft is confident in this game and was willing to share it with everybody.
And they also know that they got to prove themselves with it.
Right, and I feel like it totally did.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I was pretty much over Assassin's Creed. We talked about it on the pre-E3 episode that we did, that I had just kind of fallen off with it. I never finished Syndicate. The game before that was a broken mess. It's pretty good now that they've patched it up. For most people...
There's not a lot of incentive to go back and finish it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for a lot of people, the last game that they really enjoyed was Black Flag. And I would agree with that. That was the last time where I had that true Assassin's Creed joy. I've seen so much about this game that kind of reignites that fire that I had. I remember the first time I saw the first trailer for the first Assassin's Creed, and that kind of like sense of wonder that I had. I feel like it's kind of recaptured that. I love all the interaction with the wildlife. That has a whole other element to it. The combat is vastly improved. I love that it's been transformed into more of an action RPG with a lot of the trappings of that sort of subgenre. Playing it played great. The changes they've made to the control scheme have all been for the better. A lot of the automatic nature of the game has been removed. You feel like you're in control pretty much at all times. Really impressed with it. And here's the crazy thing, too, is I ran into Megan Rue yesterday, and I mentioned her also on a prior episode, how she was the world's biggest Assassin's Creed fan at game trailers. And she would come into my office, and she'd talk to me about stuff I didn't even know what the hell she was talking about half the time. And I ran into her, and she doesn't like it. She's like, I just gave up. She's like, she went on some crazy tirade, again, about stuff I didn't even know, about how Rogue had a scene in it that should have been in an earlier game, and if you play that first, it's spoiled. I was just like, okay.
I played Rogue, and I have no idea
what I'm like, exactly. I was like, from your perspective, okay, maybe you don't like it. I'm like, from mine, just someone who plays Assassin's Creed, isn't a total lore hound, but just has enjoyed the games and fell off with them over the last couple, it's reinvigorated for me. I'm really excited for this.
I mean, look, all you had to do was put it in Egypt.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I don't even... but I am a big fan of Assassin's Creed, and I'm excited for it. But like, I feel like I need to get my hands on it in a play the whole game sense before I know. I'm still in a wait and see holding pattern a little bit, in the sense of is the loot going to work and be cool, or is it going to annoy me like Darksiders 2 did?
Right.
Is it going to be too much, like management or whatever? Is the fighting system taking the correct lessons from Dark Souls, or is it just going to feel weird and awkward?
You know what? It is challenging, the combat. Like, you get hit a couple times, you die. And the one thing I hated about Assassin's Creed combat from the past is that you could just counter kill your way through the whole game.
Yeah, you can't do that now.
You can't, not at all. Like, that is completely changed. And it's like you said, it's not quite Dark Souls level.
No.
It's not like you get hacked twice and you die, but there's real consequence and real tension during the combat, which is something I haven't had in one of those games in a long time.
Yeah, they've been missing that for a long time. And I'm encouraged by that. That and Shadow of War, which I still don't like the title.
Yeah.
I still like Mordor was the key word in that first game. Like, removing it's like Mordor, War for Mordor. You should call it War for Mordor.
That's probably a better title.
You're welcome, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
That game also is hard.
Yeah.
Like, there were people like reporting back that like I died more times in the 10-minute demo than I did all through the first game.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
hard is the new black.
Not touching that one.
Oh wow.
But I'm really glad to see that kind of like, maybe it's a result of Dark Souls in some way. Like, but it's like the challenge is coming back a little bit. Like, they're not making them just a grand tour of
whatever
open world. It's like
ancient civilization.
Yeah, I like that trend this year. It feels like they're putting some challenge in. At the very least, you can choose your difficulty level in Shadow of War. And having just played through Shadow of Mordor again this year, I thought it was way too easy.
Yeah.
So, like, that was nice. And Assassin's Creed being like that is nice to see as well. There's a lot of good reasons to be excited about this Assassin's Creed game.
For sure.
I'm just glad I'm just glad I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah,
in what it showed.
I was more than not disappointed. I was impressed. All right, here we go for the first down. What's your first down after E3?
My first down is not going to be a popular one, but it's Super Mario Odyssey.
Ooh, let's look at the chat.
Look at the chat.
This should be fun.
No, I'm not saying I don't want to play it, and I'm not gonna buy it or play the game when it comes out or anything. I'm just saying I kind of wanted something equivalent to Super Mario Galaxy 2, and we're getting like reverse Kirby.
Yeah.
And like Mario becoming other things holds literally zero interest for me.
I mean, for those of you who don't know, the entire crux of Super Mario Odyssey is this mechanic called capturing.
Yeah.
And basically the hat that he wears, it has a name. It's called Cappy. Of course it is.
Wonder how Capybara Games feels about that.
Yeah. Basically, you can throw the hat on just about anything.
Tons of things.
And then take control of whatever you throw the cap on.
And it's a pretty clever... Actually, I did like that. A pretty clever way of differentiating what you can throw the cap on. They're a little bigger than the other stuff.
Yeah.
And like you'd think that wouldn't be enough, but it is. You can tell.
You know when you see something,
And it's cool, but watching the demos of this, like, it felt like people were playing a lot of nonsense to get to the Mario.
Yeah.
And that was disappointing to me. I'm not saying it's not going to be fun. I'm not saying, like, it's going to be bad. But it's just not what I was hoping for. And that kind of took me down a level. And I was very unhappy about that because I really wanted this to be kind of the Mario equivalent of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. And I feel like Breath of the Wild went back to like the core of Zelda, took a bunch of lessons from the last 10 years of game design and reincorporated it into a form that like made it feel very distinctly Nintendo and distinctly Zelda. And this feels a little more like back in the Wii days when they'd come up with some weird gimmick for every sequel to make it different.
Yeah.
And we were all just saying, can't you just give us what we liked but prettier and better?
Well, I think what this game does, though, is it gives you a lot more variety than most Mario 3D platforms.
Yeah, I mean,
because everything you take over has a different type of control scheme, a different set of abilities. And I think Nintendo is just looking for a way to provide some more diversity to a Mario game without having to, like, turn Mario into something he's not, I guess is the best way to put it. And maybe it's like a lesson that it learned with Sunshine, where it's like, maybe in hindsight, him having something strapped to him the whole game wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, I do think the hat thing is a better idea than Flood was.
It's a more organic way to do it,
it's
I guess.
Just, like, I felt the Galaxy games...
But some of them are stupid. It's like you throw the hat on a T-Rex, and like now you're controlling a T... Like, I mean, it is Mario.
Yeah,
it does play in the world of absurd, but...
And at the same time, I will always support putting dinosaurs into something for no good reason.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with Mario controlling a giant T-Rex, but like... It's just between that and kind of the demos where you see people just sort of wandering around a pretty barren town that like giving me uncomfortable reminders of Sonic Adventure. Like it's not quite what I was hoping it would turn out to be. It still looks pretty cool in places. Like the desert town thing looked pretty cool. I'm also a little like. It feels weird that he buys things. Yeah. That there's a store in a Mario game.
For clothing and all that.
Yeah, that he's not just picking up power-ups.
I mean, you're seeing a lot of elements from Breath of the Wild come into Mario.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what you're seeing there. I'm surprised the one thing that you did mention that I was actually disappointed in is the game's graphics.
Oh, I was waiting for you to bring that up pretty much. It's not a
right on
game
cue.
In a lot of ways.
There are parts of it that look pretty. There are lots of parts of it that look really bad.
Yeah.
Like, just... garishly plain and just ugly, blurry textures.
Well, this game has some of the worst ground textures. On display.
It looks like it was made as like I don't know, maybe a Wii U game.
I'm pretty sure it started life as a Wii U.
I mean, I've seen Wii U games that look better than this. I guess is what I'm trying to say. It may have started as like
I think
a
Breath
Wii
of the
game.
Wild looks better than this.
Yeah, in some ways.
Breath of the Wild is pulling some weird tricks here and there.
Yeah.
But Breath of the Wild has that kind of gauzy. Sort of almost hazy in places, sort of like distant scale thing it does, and it kind of like makes it all kind of work. Whereas this,
these trailers are a little deceptive because they show the very best looking parts of the game that I saw at E3.
But to be fair, like Mario is a much like they're going for a much clearer, sharper, defined visual look than Zelda did.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a natural outgrowth of that. It's just what you're going to have to put up with. The characters, I think, look really good.
Yeah.
I thought the boss battles were really cool. Like the boss battle they showed, like those are going to be fun. And I already pre-ordered Pimp Bowser, the Pimp Bowser amiibo, because that is the coolest that character has ever looked.
Has Bowser ever really looked cool?
I like Bowser. Yeah. I like him usually when he's in kind of like a humorously ironic location. Like, I like it when he's like playing tennis.
Yeah.
Like I always, I love the fan theories about how like inviting Bowser to the Mushroom Kingdom Castle sports days works out. Like, how do you keep inviting the guy that like keeps kidnapping your girlfriend? Kind of thing?
Right.
I'm like, I guess it's like the Back to the Future thing where it's like, how do you let the guy who like assaulted your wife in high school like wash your car?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, well, I guess we just figure these things out off camera somewhere.
All right. So my first down for E3 2017 is Crackdown 3. Look,
I did not pick this for one of my downs because I knew you had it covered.
well, here's the thing. Like, my expectations...
We're right there with you.
My expectations for this game were pretty darn low.
Yeah, that what makes it even worse.
Right, exactly. Like, I have been on record for the last 2 years saying that I'm not impressed with Crackdown. I didn't like the prior Crackdowns all that much. This was one of the worst games I saw at E3. Bar none.
I have to agree. As a Crackdown fan, I have to agree.
It looks so bad.
And I mean, I don't even mean like, oh, it looks like bad or not fun to play. I mean, every time I looked at it in the booth, I was like, this doesn't look good.
No.
Like, visually,
or
this
fun,
does not look
or
good.
Interesting. It came out yesterday. You can finish it in 3 hours.
Yeah, they said 3 hours if you hurry, 12 hours max?
If you 100% it.
What?
How do you get all the orbs in 12 hours?
I don't know.
How's that even possible?
There must be an easier way to find them now.
Wow. This game has been in development for a really long freaking time, man. You think about that.
Maybe they lost the other half of the game in the cloud.
Maybe. That might have happened. You think about it, though, a year per hour of gameplay, pretty much, is how this game's worked out. I don't know how many developers would keep their jobs after that. I also wonder, too, if all that cloud computing tech that was supposed to be built into it didn't ultimately end up being this game's undoing. Mm-hmm. But it is... Wow.
Clearly some things went awry.
Somewhere along the way. I don't know if this just ended up being what they could salvage from the game, and that's why it's so short. I don't know. But it was, hands down...
I mean, I don't want to compare things that we don't have the correct inside information on too much, but, like, I looked at this and I was like, and Scalebound got canceled?
Right. I said the same thing! I'm like, really? And then they announced, Phil Spencer said this week that Scalebound was basically canceled because there was too much hype around it.
What does that even mean?
He was like, people were so excited for it. We knew the expectations were that it was supposed to be like one of the best games ever, and it wasn't shaping up to be that way, so we canned it. I'm like...
But we kept Crackdown because no one expects this to be good.
Track. Hell. Oh, man. And a lot of gameplay did not come out for Crackdown.
No, I noticed that.
And, I wonder why.
And, even at the booth, what people were playing at the booth was mostly climbing buildings.
Yep.
There wasn't much happening.
Yeah.
At one point, the crowd kind of stopped, and I was stuck by Crackdown for, 15 minutes. And, I was looking for, screen to screen to screen. Nothing different across any of it. It was always the same. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to just continually beat this dead cell-shaded horse, but, it was, as someone who loved Crackdown 1 and liked Crackdown 2, yeah. It wasn't a bad time at the movies, as we say. I'm heartbroken over this game. Basically.
I don't get it at all. All right, what is your next up?
My next up is Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. Which I like the first one. We talked about that on the press conference stream. I like New Order very much. And I was interested in this one, obviously, because, I want more of that. And boy, are we getting more.
Yeah.
The presentation was incredible. At the press conference, I was told, I didn't get to see the theater presentation, but I was told that the stuff in there, and I think you did see it.
I played it.
You played it?
Yeah.
So the stuff in there apparently was even crazier.
Yeah. See, Wolfenstein 2 is awesome. It is freaking awesome. It is one of the games walking out of there that I was like, that's one of my hot lists for like game of the show.
So I was not. Again, like Spider-Man, I was looking forward to it, but I did not expect it to jump to the top of my list the way it has.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
Like it's gone. Taken it so over the top and so crazy.
Well, you
and
think
so violent.
this debut trailer is batshit insane? Where do you play the game? I mean, it really. That trailer is 100% indicative of the game that you're going to be playing. I played like the first 35 minutes, 40 minutes of it or whatever and didn't want to stop. And that doesn't happen very often at E3. And a lot of times it's not because of the game itself. It's because you know you need to go somewhere else to play something else. And none of that mattered when I was playing this. I did not want it to end. I'll be interested to see if other people liked it as much as I did and you did as the awards start to roll out. But it's one of the most memorable things I experienced at E3 2017. Faux show. My next up, in counterpoint to Matt's down, is Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey, I loved it. And this was a game where my expectations were pretty low because I'd been talking trash about New Donk City and how
I was like, oh, the booth is New Donk City.
Yeah,
Shane's never
you wouldn't even want to go in there. And look, that part of the game I still feel like is probably its weakest element, and it is weird. But the rest of the game, to me, just makes up for it in spades. I like the whole capture mechanic a lot. I think it provides a lot of variety to the game. And the other thing I like about it is that it reminds me more of Super Mario 64. And it brings back a little bit more. And you were saying how you had to do stuff to get to the Mario. And I agree with that. But I like that. A little bit of the discovery and adventure elements of Mario in the 3D Mario games. And I feel like that's something that's been lost a little bit lately. Not that I didn't like the 3D Mario games. I love them. But they had kind of turned into like these really crazy like platforming gauntlets. And I like that too. I like testing my skills and really being put to the test. This game isn't so much about that. It's a little bit more about adventuring and discovering things. And it's just a little bit of a different spin on it. And I feel like I'm ready for that after the Galaxies and Super Mario 3D World. I just feel like I'm ready for a little bit of a change. So I went into the show kind of sour on this game. The other thing I would say, too, is they showed so much of it. I mean, they literally showed hours of this game. Whereas every other game, you're lucky to get an 8-minute canned gameplay demo. They just threw the game out there. Yeah. And like every day, the Treehouse would show new parts that weren't in the show on the show floor.
Well, certainly, I didn't have any doubts anyway, but I think there's no reason to doubt this game is making it this year.
Oh, no way.
That release date is set in stone.
100%. Yeah.
This is their Christmas, 800-pound gorilla to bring back the New Donk City thing again.
Yep.
This is clearly they knew this is their linchpin for the second half of the year, and they blew it out. And I think, as much as it's not quite the game I wanted, I think they did it up right.
Yeah.
In the show.
Okay, let's go for our last down from each of us. I hate that on a sour note. We should swap these next year.
Yeah.
But our last down, what's your last down?
My last down is Life is Strange Before the Storm, which I was looking forward to more Life is Strange. I really liked Life is Strange. I'm playing it again on PlayStation 4 now that it was the free game for PlayStation Plus.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I'll do that again.
Yeah.
But, so this game is, it's a prequel.
Yep.
Which is
it's okay. But you do miss...
I don't care that much, and Max isn't part of it, so it's not. It's like the Twin Peaks thing. It's like I don't actually care who killed Laura Palmer. Like the point is the things that the fallout of that.
Right.
It's not made by Don't Nod, the developers of the original game.
Yep.
And it doesn't have Ashley Birch as the voice of Chloe because of the voice actor strike.
Yep.
So that's
really weird.
That's basically 3 strikes and you're out. I don't know who this game is for at that point.
Yeah.
It's just I was cool. I was like in a really cool, like more Life is Strange, awesome. Oh. Well,
you forgot the fourth strike, which is they took out its most defining gameplay mechanic, which was the
time
ability.
Travel, because Max isn't part of it.
So the time traveling thing's like all out of it.
Yeah. And it's only 3 episodes.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and the portions are too small.
I'm there with you. I was disappointed
So,
to hear. Everything I've heard about this game, I was disappointed to hear
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I guess I went back and forth about picking this as one of the downs because it feels like a pretty small game to, pick as one of your 2 big disappointments of the show. But I'm like, you know what? I like Life is Strange enough to be that disappointed.
Yeah.
I think. And hopefully Don't Nod comes back and does a Life is Strange 2
If
in a
it
few
just
years.
doesn't kill it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's the danger.
Yeah.
Is no one will care then.
That's the other thing. Is like, is this game's, could this game prevent us from getting more of the good from Don't Nod?
Yeah.
As much as I'm looking forward to their vampire game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought this
Although that didn't look especially good either.
didn't look great either, but
That almost made my list, actually.
yeah.
As one of the downers.
Well, lucky for them, they're screwing up their previous game first.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, this was just basically something that was like, just killed the hype for this game completely for me.
Yep. My last down is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
That was also almost one of mine, but again, I was hoping you'd pick that baton up.
I don't know how it's possible to create a fighting game that has some of my most beloved characters in the history of video games in it and make it a game I really have no interest in playing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it looks like it plays fine versus the story. I haven't played the story demo, but there's been some bad.
It's bad.
Some bad.
It's really bad. Yeah.
Impressions on that. People some of the pros who were playing the game on the floor were saying it's the depth is there, the versus feel is there, but look, it looks terrible.
It really does.
Like, I don't know how it looks like this.
I mean, technically it looks terrible.
Yeah.
Also, artistically it looks terrible. Like, some of the characters, you can hardly even recognize them in this game. It's like...
Like, they're lucky Chun-Li isn't a real person or she'd sue them.
It's like Capcom... I mean, look, this game should have been a shoo-in for fighting game of E3 2017. A shoo-in. There shouldn't even have been any question. That should have been one of the easiest categories to ever choose. And it's not. I didn't really like anything about this game. I highly doubt that this game is going to become like a tournament fighter. I think they'll just stick to the old games. I don't really think the roster in this game is one of the better in the series.
The roster suffers a lot from losing the X-Men.
Yeah, for sure.
And which is something I think I called that on this show months and months ago, because it's just not going to... You might see that ice thaw in the DLC as the seasons progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I mean, you take the X-Men out, you've got no Storm, no Wolverine, no Magneto, no Sentinel. You don't have the characters that basically define this series and have since at least Marvel 2. And then they also don't even have Akuma in it, which means that Justin Wong's entire team is annihilated. Like, who are these people going to play?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I mean, you're still going to see it in tournaments and stuff because...
you think you will?
Yeah, because Capcom's going to force it. Capcom sponsors
You mean you'll see it on like the Capcom Pro Tour?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Where you see it at like EVO.
Oh, of course.
You think?
Capcom sponsors... That's part of the Pro Tour, man.
You're
Like,
right.
That's going to happen. Capcom puts money behind that.
I forgot about that, yeah.
But in terms of local stuff, like Wednesday night fights, like will this be a big deal? It'll be a big deal.
You mean the tournaments where the fighters get to decide what the games are?
And again, it will be there because people got to play it to be good enough to get to do the Capcom Pro Tour. Like they got you over a barrel on that one. But do I think Marvel 3 will disappear? No. I think people will still play Marvel 3. They'll play this for money, but they'll play Marvel 3 for love.
Yeah. I was really disappointed in this game. Again, I thought it was going to be a shoo-in for fighting game of E3 2017, and I just tipped my hand a little bit to one of the categories, but that's okay, because you don't know what I am going to pick. All right, let's start off with our E3 2017 awards proper. Our first award, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 15 awards. Let's rock. First one, Best Debut. Now, this category is a category that we kind of include so that games that we don't get to play can still be recognized. And it's becoming harder and harder to figure out which games can be considered for awards and which ones should be considered for this award. Because sometimes the developers will play it, like God of War, for instance, was a game that I got to see played. I didn't play it. But conceivably, if I'm an E3 judge, I'm sure they would have done what they used to do when I was an E3 judge and hand me the controller to prove to me that it's real. But there are some games it's hard to figure out because they'll show a trailer that's basically gameplay, but is that all just pre-recorded? And if it is, they can jimmy stuff. And so it just gets more and more murky by the day. But this category Best debut is basically for games that we saw that we did not get to play and could not, therefore, maybe be considered as a game of the show candidate, for instance. And best debut, we both chose the same game. We can say it together. Anthem. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I would have got to play this, I probably would have given it game of the
Yeah,
show.
same. This is the best thing I saw this year.
Yeah, I agree.
No question.
This shot right here just blows my freaking mind. Just the level of fidelity in this opening shot in the bazaar, it's insane. Like, this is what next-gen technology is all about right here. This is what the Xbox One X is all about. Just look at the lighting in this scene.
Lighting is a big deal this year. Like, lighting made a lot of stuff look extra amazing.
It did, for sure. I mean, and just the way the game is designed, it's an action RPG. It looks like the Destiny that I wanted instead of what we ultimately got.
Yeah, and people keep saying, "Oh, Destiny 2, Destiny." It's like, look, you're going to finish all the content in Destiny 2 by the time this game makes it out.
For
Like,
sure.
these are not competitors.
Yeah, they're not going to step on each other's toes or anything. By the time you've had your fill of Destiny 2, this sucker's going to come out and you're just going to keep on rolling. I love the gameplay that they show. It looks interesting and fun. I love the atmosphere of the game. I like the setting of the game. I like the tone of the game. I like the art style. I have not seen anything of this that they've shown so far that I did not like. It's a shame it wasn't playable. It had been great if they had at least put together some kind of a little demo, because I'm pretty confident that this probably would have swept Game of Show Awards. But
got to save something for next year.
yeah, I mean, it's not coming out this year, so
I would never get into that thing.
me either.
Look at that. Like that.
How bad does that smell?
Yeah. Like, nobody cleans that between missions.
Definitely not. I'm a big fan, and it seems like on Sifted, everyone else is too. All the comments on this clip on Sifted were all just glowing, extremely positive. I haven't seen anybody who thought this was underwhelming in any way, shape, or form. It is BioWare Edmonton, the team that made all the great Mass Effect games.
Although I hear it is pretty much BioWare all hands on deck.
Oh, I figure.
Like all around the continent.
Well, especially now after what happened with Andromeda.
Right.
I'm sure BioWare is like, look, we can't really risk our brand. You know, we really need to make this something special.
To a large degree, I believe, like, if you're not working on SWTOR, you're working on this.
Yeah. So really impressed. I love how seamless the game is. How you just jump off a cliff and just basically jetpack down into your mission.
I think my favorite part of the whole little snippet here is when they go underwater.
Yep.
And how it's like, oh, there's a lot of stuff.
It opens up a whole other world. You're just like, how how far down the rabbit hole can you go, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I am mega hyped, pumped for this game. Probably my most anticipated game in the entire industry right now. So
it's going to be a long year and a half, 2 years.
Is. Yeah, it probably will be 2. That's what I'm guessing. And then I have an honorable mention for this category, and I couldn't give it the award because we got so little, but Metroid Prime 4. Just because it's Metroid Prime 4. That's it. They showed us nothing. We don't even know who's developing the game. I know Nintendo's not going to allow the Metroid Prime series to get sullied. If anything, if it doesn't work out, they'll just can it and let Retro make it.
But to me, it's like I appreciate the attempt to make me shut up about Metroid.
Yeah.
But it's like, look, that thing's 2019.
Oh, yeah.
Lucky. Like,
this game may not even come out for Switch, in all honesty.
Yeah. You don't know. Like, it felt a kind of an empty move. To
Oh,
me.
yeah.
It
was just purely so people will shut up.
Yeah.
So they'll stop complaining that Nintendo doesn't care about Metroid, and it's leaving this franchise behind. That's
and maybe they
all
still don't care about Metroid, but they do care about going to sleep.
Yeah.
Like,
Not
please
getting
leave us alone.
Their social feed bombarded with nonsense.
In the meantime, here's another Yoshi game.
Yeah, or another Kirby game.
That sold a lot of Wii U's.
It is disappointing that Retro's not developing Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, although a lot of people that made Metroid Prime when it was at Retro aren't there anymore. So like, if they want to assemble kind of a new team to kind of tackle that, I'm on board with that. I think it's fine. And also, if there's one thing we know largely from Metroid Prime's development, is that Miyamoto will not let this game suck.
Yeah.
Like,
he'll go full Emperor
they'll make
on
it,
him.
even if we got to wait another 5 years.
Yeah.
It'll be good when it comes out. This felt way too early and playing a little too hard on kind of like, the fanboy freak out thing.
It worked.
It did work.
It worked
apparently.
on me. Sometimes you just gotta give in. And then our next category. This is a really tough one this year. Best graphics.
And of course, what is Retro doing?
I don't know. Hopefully not another Donkey. I'm really starting to wonder if it is making another Donkey Kong game.
New Donk Country.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
They're making a whole Donkey Kong New Donk City spinoff.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a talented studio. Even a lot of people have left from the Prime team. I mean, whether you liked Tropical Freeze or not, it's hard to deny that it was a well-designed,
I think Tropical
gorgeous
Freeze
game.
is a tremendously underrated game.
It's a great game.
Like, I mean, the people that have played it love it, but like, it surprises me Tropical Freeze is not talked about more.
People are burnt out on that
I guess
franchise.
so, but it's great.
It always seems weird to
great.
me to put a big budget and a AAA team against a side-scrolling anything. It's like when you look at the indie scene, the games that these indie people are making with teams of 5 and 6 people, it just seems weird to have a team of like 150 people working on a side-scrolling game. It just doesn't seem like a good use of resources to me. And look, it does come through because Tropical Freeze is probably the best side-scrolling platformer from the last 7 years or whatever. But is it worth it? I mean, ultimately it wasn't because it didn't sell especially well. So, I don't know. We'll see what Retro's up to. I'm still disappointed they're not making Prime 4. I get why they would not want to. They've got to be so freaking sick of that series. But it's disappointing nonetheless. So, let's move on to Best Graphics. Matt, what is your pick for the Best Graphics of E3 2017?
Possibly kind of a boring one, but like, it wasn't much of a choice. Forza Motorsport 7. I realize it's not really doing anything particularly exciting in terms of what they're showing us. They're showing us the graphics doing.
Yeah.
But like, you stand there in front of that game, and it's like, it is amazing. Like, it is.
It really is.
It's you're edging into photoreal territory in places. You know, I can see the difference from 6 for sure. Just running on the X. And
on the X, it's a huge difference.
It's just not a comparison. And like, so it's like, I want to acknowledge other games that blew me away visually, but like, if you're really just talking pure graphics, like, this game is incredible.
Yeah, so there was tucked in the corner.
The water on the cars.
It pull not even just on the cars. The water pools on the ground and will grow. So I went in the corner of Microsoft's Xbox booth. There was a 20-minute presentation just for Xbox One X. And it was in this theater, and they showed Minecraft, which, whatever. Although I will say, like, Minecraft looks mind-blowing on Xbox One X.
Like, I don't have any interest in playing it, but I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, that looks good.
This theater had, like, a beautiful TV, probably like 80-inch, like 4K television.
I think it's what they were showing Gears 4 online. It's giant, and it's like, when it moves, it looks like a painting.
Yeah, it does.
Like,
it's
a $90,000 television.
Yeah. And so they showed that, and then they showed the revamped Gears of War 4 for Xbox One X. And I gotta say, that is also freaking mind-blowing, like the amount of work that they've done on that. And then they showed Forza Motorsport 7. And all the games look incredible, by the way. Like, all 3 of them look incredible. Gears of War 4, I was like, holy crap. But they were talking about how basically what they did with it is they're like blowing out the LOD to like farther distances. But you know what? In Gears, I could still see pop-up. And they talked about the LOD, and at that very moment, they spin the camera around, and you see the top of a building, and you see the tiles on the roof go doink, 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 doink. So
I feel like LOD is the next big challenge.
It is a big challenge.
In visual game dev.
And then they showed Forza, and like walked us through everything that's happened. It is mind-blowing what that game does. The one thing I would say, though, there's still pop-up in that game.
Yep.
You could still see like signposts popping up on the horizon. And they told the group that when they ported the Xbox One S version over to the Xbox One X, they port the code over direct. They then just cranked it up to 4K, locked it at 60, and they still had 30% headroom left on the GPU. So this is just the beginning, folks. There's still a lot more headroom. I mean, look at what the beginning is. They talked about the water in the game, but I'll tell you what blew my mind more than anything, Matt, of that Xbox One X demo was Dolby Atmos. Atmos. The
Atmos,
audio is incredible.
I think I mentioned when they showed the Atmos logo. I think I mentioned that during the press conference. Like, oh, they got Atmos on
No,
this thing.
it is a way
Atmos
bigger
is
deal.
Unbelievable.
It is a way bigger deal than anybody could ever imagine. Like literally, it sounds like there's stuff over your head, and there were no speakers on the ceiling.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what it is, basically the simplest way to say it is it bounces sound off the front wall of your theater room or whatever, and uses that to simulate stuff passing over
It
you.
is deadly accurate.
It's
Like there was a
incredible.
helicopter overhead, and it was literally right freaking there. Like, wow. I was blown away. I've never been blown away by audio like that in my life.
It's like, well, the other time it reminded me of when I first heard Dolby Atmos. It reminded me of when we used to remember Tech TV used to be right next to the Dolby Labs.
Yeah, we'd go there for
And we
some
go
gaming
there.
events.
Yeah, we
too,
go there and see that. One of the times we went there, they're like, hey, try this because check this out. This thing we're working on, and it was basically like, have you tried surround sound? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to put these headphones on. And it was when they were first developing kind of that way to make headphones fake surround sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, how? It's behind me. Like
Yeah.
it's just two things here, but it's back here. And it's Atmos is like that. Atmos is that like, how can I be hearing something when there's nothing?
No speakers up there.
It's
crazy.
It's and like, of course,
it's gonna be really expensive.
oh, it's like a $5,000 to $8,000 sound system, but it's like, so it's irrelevant except for like the 9 people that have it for it also want an Xbox One X. But I can't overstate how amazing Dolby Atmos is.
Yeah. It was mind-blowing, literally. But again, that's a new technology that'll eventually come down in price, and people like us will be able to afford it. It's just what's coming next, and Xbox One X has it now.
Is there first,
Yeah. So I hear you on Forza Motorsport 7. Having somebody there talking about what you're seeing and explaining it to you was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. And I'm not going to try to say like, oh, if someone's more excited about the graphics in another game that's less by rote, or by road, maybe I should say.
Yeah.
I understand that. I totally understand that because like my honorable mention here would be Spider-Man.
Yep.
Because A, it's more exciting to watch, and B, the lighting in that game is insane.
The animation to me is what really
animation as well. But like just when I watch the Spider-Man trailer, or the Spider-Man demo, whatever you want to call it from the press conference.
Yeah.
When I watched that a second time, I just kept staring at the lighting.
Yeah.
Like the lighting passing over him when he's falling.
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
That. It's
Well,
so
look at that shot
good.
right there.
It's or even when he's like in like the little like kind of like the construction site places and like jumping around and like just the way it passes over him and then over the things on the ground and the thugs and then he jumps in real fast and it all. I mean, I don't know what kind of black magic they're doing over there, and it's like even there, like look at the slats of the window blinds
on his
like
suit. Yeah.
It's so good, and it just sells it. It's like maybe it's not the most impressive, like polygon to polygon video or video game graphics right now, but in terms of like selling that kind of colorful art style as something that's happening in a real world, I think it does an amazing job.
Well, I think the animation sells what he's doing as plausible, which is hard to do with characters like that.
But and Insomniac is very good at that. I mean, it's very hard, we know from watching the movies, it's very hard to have Spider-Man as a character do the things Spider-Man can.
Yeah.
Everything a spider can.
Yeah.
And still have him feel like he has weight and a place in the real world that's in
and
there.
it makes sense.
And they fail at that in the movies a
do.
fair amount, but I think this game is nailing it.
I thought they got pretty good. They got pretty close in Civil War.
Civil War they did a really good job, but there's always those moments in like even the Raimi Spider-Mans where he's jumping from rooftop to rooftop, and it probably would kind of look like that, but it just doesn't feel like he's got weight and that he's real in the world, and this Insomniac game is just nailing that aspect of the character, and I love it.
Go figure. My winner for best graphics of E3 2017 is Metro Exodus.
That was really impressive.
Oh, yeah. Shown during the Microsoft press conference running on Xbox One X.
I was almost early when we first saw that. I was a little like, "Is that real?
It is real."
Really?
They ended up showing it being played to basically make it eligible for E3 awards. I mean, unfortunately, that's what these developers have to do. I'm not the world's biggest Metro fan, by the way.
Me neither.
I've talked about it before, how I think the games are kind of drab and the setting isn't all that interesting. I've done a full reversal with the look at this game. If this is like a tech demo for Xbox One X. It pretty much shows off everything that the hardware is capable of. But I think most importantly, what I love about it is the art. You'll see eventually here you get to it where there's creatures that attack you, and those character models are some of the, probably actually the best character models I've ever seen in a console video game.
Certainly, like the way that how close they are and how well they hold
and
up
the
at
detail,
that distance.
Yeah, and just the little attention to detail, like the animations of the faces and the fur shading and the hair, and man, it's just, and it's moody, the lighting, just even that, where you burn up there's just, the attention to detail in this game to me is just absolutely incredible. Like, look at that creature. Like, it's CG in real time, Matt. I mean, it really is. We're there now.
Toy Story in real time, finally.
Yeah.
Really terrifying Toy Story.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the attention to detail in the animation is in this as well. Like, I don't know if you saw, but like when you shot that first creature, like he does this crazy like shiver. I'm shocked that this game is coming from this team. I mean, their games have always looked good, but they kind of lack that attention to detail that we're seeing in this one. Like, they always had the mask kind of fogging up, and that was kind of one of the gameplay elements of the game. But just I feel like everything's handled with aplomb here. Just that shot right there. Do you see when that dust that came down from the window right there? There's just so many little things in this.
The fact that monster model holds up in the light.
In daylight, yeah. Because a lot of times they'll hide kind of rough edges in the dark. And then you come out here and you see the open world. And it's just like, okay, so it's doing all this, and it's not in these little self-contained levels. It is kind of cheating in a lot of ways. So,
yeah, I'm interested in it. It's because I did play the Metro games, and they're cool, but like
janky a lot of times.
Yeah, the thing that always got me about the Metro games was like the premise is a little like if you just hear it, it's sort of like, oh, okay, so
Chernobyl.
World's gone to hell, and everybody's hiding, and like, but they come out. But there's like this beautifully like uniquely Russian element to it, where it's like everyone in the game knows they're all gonna die, and probably humanity is doomed. But they still go out and like kill stuff and hunt stuff. And why? Because what else are you gonna do? Because life is suffering. And it's just like it's like there's a reason this thing starts with a Dostoevsky quote.
Yeah,
it's like this is a Russian novel as an action movie.
It is. Yeah.
There is no hope here.
Yep, I'm really excited. This is also one of the games that we know is like running in real time, so that gives a little bit of a
again. Look at this, the lighting
and all the detail in these rooms. I mean, Xbox One X it makes a difference, man.
It does.
It is. It's not like PS4 Pro where you're squinting your eyes trying to figure out what the improvements are. Like, it's blatantly obvious that it's the most powerful console ever made, without a doubt. Also, really small.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Seeing that thing in person, man, it's like this big.
Yeah.
It's so little. Yeah, and like this. Yeah, I don't know how they're doing it. I'm assuming the power brick for that thing is going to be like this big.
Yeah, it's going to be this big. It's going to mount on the opposite wall.
Yeah, you have to like mount it on the wall.
Yeah, don't stand too near it because your body heat will overheat the system.
Yeah. Like yep. All right.
Comes in an ice chest.
We're ready for our next category: best first-person shooter. Matt, I think everybody in the world can guess what game you're going to pick.
Yeah, this is for me Star Wars Battlefront 2.
No surprise.
I enjoyed the first one in spite of kind of the dearth of content, or the Darth of content, I don't know. But everything they've changed up and everything they're adding, everything else they're doing in this game is exactly the right move, I think. It looks and feels more weighty and solid. Not too weighty, because Battlefront is a little floaty to begin with.
Yeah, I feel like it still kind of feels the same.
But the guns I think are a little better.
Maybe.
Not like great, not Call of Duty great, but it doesn't quite feel like everything is the same thing now.
By the way, they did a terrible job debuting this game.
Yeah, this was not a good...
After the press conference. That 30-minute chunk of gameplay...
No.
They kept cutting to people who were terrible at the game. And then they had like the esports announcer who's supposed to try to smooth everything. It just became incredibly awkward after a while. And eventually the announcer just started making fun of the people who were playing the game.
Yeah, which is probably not what you want
for
the debut of your game. But so this is, obviously it's kind of a no-brainer, but I like all the it looks amazing. It has all the different eras. I like that you can mix eras with the heroes. I like that you no longer have to go pick up stupid icons to have any of the cool stuff in the game. You use the battle points you earned to buy those and become them yourself.
I like all the features of it.
Yeah.
I like the changes that they've made. I like how they're handling the modes. I like that there's going to be a campaign.
I like that the
which is a
post-launch
little
content
weird
is
that
free.
they kind of shoved to the side. I'm a little nervous about
Yeah, I
that.
don't know. I was really expecting to see some campaign demos somewhere,
Yeah.
and it just didn't happen.
I mean, they showed some to the press who got to write about it and talk about it, not
but
show it.
But they were not confident enough to show it
That's
publicly.
concerning to me.
Which is weird. Yeah.
And then when I played it, it still felt very much like the first game as far as
Mm-hmm.
the gameplay was concerned. So that's why it didn't win Best Shooter for me. But I do like the features. I think for Star Wars fans, it's going to be even better than the last game. It does seem like it's going to have sort of longer legs,
Mm-hmm.
that people are going to be able to enjoy it for a longer period of time. I like that they're mixing up the modes a lot more. So I'm all in, except for I just still didn't quite like the feel of the gunplay.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that they can keep working on. I mean, that is one of those things that you can keep tweaking. Even after it's released, you can keep tweaking it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I agree with you that it doesn't feel as good as it got. I don't understand why it isn't just a one-to-one in terms of just feel and gunplay. I don't know why that's just
Battlefield.
Battlefield 1.
Yeah,
like,
I
just
don't get
take
it.
that and put blasters in it. Like, I don't need...
I don't understand it either.
But, I mean, I'll put up with it for Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, look, just watch this trailer.
Yeah.
If you like Star Wars, you're going to friggin' splooge all over this game, without a doubt.
You made me excited to watch Battle Droids. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen very often.
Yep. Okay, my pick for the best first-person shooter of E3 2017 is, and no surprise after I already gushed all over it, Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus.
These are really the two top dogs of the show.
Yeah, but it's funny because we're flip-flopped. So you love Star Wars because of the multiplayer, don't know much about the campaign. I love Wolfenstein for the campaign, don't really know squat about the multiplayer.
Which is extra funny because I'm the campaign guy and you're the multiplayer
No, you're
guy.
absolutely right. Isn't that crazy how it's been flipped? Neither one of us picked Call of Duty here.
True.
I was not impressed with Call of Duty World War II at all.
I didn't think it looked... I mean, visually, graphically, I didn't think it looked very good.
It doesn't look as good as either of these games.
I didn't think the multiplayer was all that engaging. I only watched like the videos that you curated on the site of it.
Yeah.
It looked fine, but it didn't look like anything I was going to jump into. Actually, my favorite comment on Call of Duty World War II, there were two guys behind me as I was walking past the Activision booth while they were showing it on the big screens, and one guy goes, "Wow, man, look at that thing! Look at that game!" And they're like, "Wow, that really looks like a world war." And I was like, "Well done, Sledgehammer! like mission accomplished." Like I don't know, not much else to say beyond that, is there?
I think probably one of the reasons I lean towards Wolfenstein is because it is so different and so unique. The tone and just everything about it is just so fascinating, I guess, to me. The way that they're kind of handling this alt history kind of approach to the game. I like the comedy, the tongue-in-cheek stuff, the just totally off-the-wall stuff. I love the way it was marketed. I love that fake-ass TV show that they made for the trailer.
I love the creepy strawberry milkshake scene.
And then I played it, and it plays amazing, and it's even weirder and more strange and different than I had even imagined. So,
How many copies of the last game do you think they've sold this week?
a lot, I think.
Because they went on sale as like a couple days after that, and I'm like, yeah, tons of people are just going like, oh, I gotta get some Wolfenstein in. Like,
Yeah, I was talking to a guy who used to be camera guy at GT. His name's Mike Buddy. He's a hardcore gamer. He's one of the few camera guys we worked with who actually played a ton of games. And I was talking to him about this game, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I didn't play the last one. And he's like, I played the old one from like way back in the day. And I was like, well, there's a sale on this game right now. And I'm like, I think it's like $5 or $10. I'm like, if you don't like it, I'll PayPal you or Venmo you the money that you spend on it. And he texted me last night. He's like, I'm 2 hours in. He's like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, if you like that, you should just put your pre-order in right now for Wolfenstein 2. So I was really impressed with this game. Again, it's something that feels completely different. When you're at a show like E3 where you're just getting bombarded with media and gameplay all over the place, something that stands out tends to leave a lasting impression. And that's exactly what happened for me with Wolfenstein 2. And again, I'm interested to see if it's hit other journalists like it has me. So
Wolfenstein 2, the 13th Wolfenstein game.
Yeah. The nomenclature
And the
for
third
games.
game in this particular little series.
Yeah.
No one knows what numbers.
Yeah,
Numbers and words mean nothing.
Well, especially Bethesda. I mean, Bethesda, it's like they just reboot Doom. It's just called Doom. It's like, how do you deal with that in the database? It's like, and then Dishonored 2's first batch of DLC is just called Dishonored. It's like, what are you doing over there?
What, with a new thing they showed?
Yeah.
That's standalone.
It is, but it's like, it's not called Dishonored 2,
Anything,
colon.
yeah.
It's just Dishonored,
right.
colon.
It's like a side story almost.
I don't know what they're doing.
But you're
with it.
playing a character from 2.
Yeah. And then they did the same thing with Prey. It wasn't actually called Prey 2. It was just called Prey again. It's like, why? I don't get it.
Bethesda, you're
But
a bunch of ruiners.
Yeah.
Ruiners of databases.
All right. So we're going to move on next to a category that I thought was really kind of poorly represented at E3 this year.
I'd agree with that.
You know, I was kind of
Which
looking
is a change from recent years.
Yeah. I know one thing. You really see the power of Sifted when you go to do these awards, because nowhere else can you click one thing and see an entire genre from E3. It's like, so it's or a topic. Like, I just clicked indie, and instantly I saw the entire gamut of indie games that were shown at E3. And as I started looking, I was like, wow, there was like hardly any great indie games at E3 this year. I mean, Cuphead was there, but I'm like, I can't give Cuphead another freaking award. Yeah, it's like, screw you, dude. You've screwed me enough times already. I'm not giving you another award.
I'll see you in September, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe. Yeah. But I mean,
if
beyond
you're
that,
lucky.
Beyond that, like, it was kind of hard to find like 3 really good games that made
because
an impact.
I went to the Sifted indie section because I had this game in mind.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want to check the indie sift to make sure I'm not missing something that was good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Nope.
I really wasn't.
Weren't. Yeah. So what's your pick, Matt?
My pick is Unruly Heroes.
Yeah, I was really impressed with this game.
Which this art style and the animation is like, if I was going to make a video game, I would want it to look like this.
Yeah,
like this,
it's gorgeous,
I love
man.
it. And especially when you get a little further in this and you see the alligator monsters here, those look so cool. Just the way they move. It's kind of got like a Vanillaware look to it.
Yeah.
But it's just this like kind of like hyper detailed like art happening, and I love side scrolling beat 'em up stuff anyway, and this just like came out of nowhere.
It really did come out of nowhere. Yeah.
And I love it. Like this is jumped to like my top 10, maybe top 5 anticipated right now. I can't wait to get my hands on this thing.
Yeah, this co-op, right? 4-player co-op.
4-player co-op.
And it looks like there's team up attacks and
team attacks, and everybody's got a role, and like there's support stuff versus attacks. There's a lot happening here, but like mainly, I love side scrolling like beat 'em up platform stuff, and this is one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen in that space.
It's very pretty.
Love it.
My pick, unfortunately, we don't have any footage for the live stream, but it'll be inserted into the archive. Is a game called The Artful Escape. Did you get to see this game at all?
I saw it in the press conference.
So this game
was that in Microsoft?
It was in
Sony's.
I can't remember which. It may have been in Sony's actually. This game.
I feel like it was Sony's.
This game was a failed Kickstarter project. They had tried to kickstart it under a different name, and I guess somebody saw what they had been working on, the initial prototypes, and decided it was worth investing in, so it now has investment to be finished. It's a side-scrolling music and rhythm puzzle platformer. The lead character is almost like a marionette. He animates like he's just got like joints like this, but
they kind of look like Broken Age.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good way to put it. The art style is very similar to Broken Age, but the animation I think is it's like when you were a kid and you'd like make these things where you'd put like the pins in at the joints and then you could like articulate them. That's kind of the art style, but the lead character has a flying V guitar. It's just like Wolfenstein. It's completely bizarre and offbeat. But he has a flying V guitar that he can use to manipulate the levels. So there's a game that just recently came out called Old Man Story, where it's just about this old man who's on a journey who could kind of shift the 2D worlds to create new avenues to sort of progress through the levels. And you do the same thing with the flying V guitar in this game. And it fires off like crazy. It's just so weird because it looks like this sort of surreal, precious little indie game, and then the dude has a flying V guitar and he fires off these crazy like guitar riffs. So
I was somewhat reminded. It was a viral video from a few years ago, but it reminds me a little bit of a video called Brody Quest. which was like similarly animated. It was basically it was Adrian Brody becoming a god. And the way he did was he sort of walked through all these like various locations, eventually got a magical flying V guitar from the center of the sun, and played hot like riffs until he was acknowledged by the creator of the universe, and the entire universe became Adrian Brody. And I feel like this game came off to me as that weird as well.
I think this was the most unique game I saw at all of E3.
It was definitely
actually you picked a game for another category later on that's close. I won't spoil it, but I felt like this was the most.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I felt like this was the most unique game at the entire show, and it was on the floor.
I think I would still give this one the edge over the one you're talking about.
But it was on the floor. You're able to play it. I enjoyed playing it. The gameplay felt great. It felt polished already. I don't think it's too long until it comes out as well, and it is coming out on multiple platforms. Mm-hmm. So The Artful Escape is my Best of E3 winner for Best Indie Game. Now we're going to go to what is probably the most popular genre in the industry at this point.
Yes. To a fault, one might say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is Best RPG.
Mm-hmm. And so many things are RPGs now that were not RPGs.
Yeah, games that used to be action-adventures, like Assassin's Creed, God of War, even like Tomb Raider now is getting there, are turning into action RPGs.
Yeah, Rise of the Tomb Raider really... Would you categorize it as action RPG? It really comes up
really
alongside
right on the
it.
line, yeah.
Like I feel like the thing that like maybe would put that over the line is if you upgraded Lara in like kind of a skill tree.
Right.
Like skill trees really push you over that line.
Yeah. I mean the only really big franchise that still kind of Spider-Man is a pure action adventure. And Uncharted is still a pure action adventure. But otherwise, like all those franchises that used to be in that genre are now moving over to the action RPG side of things. So with that in mind, Matt, what is your best RPG of E3 2017?
My best RPG is a action RPG called Assassin's Creed Origins.
Yep.
And one of the main reasons I picked it for this was because the RPG elements of it are the parts I'm most interested in.
Well, they're the parts that change it so much and make you interested in it again.
And again, like I said before, I'm a little skeptical. I mean, not skeptical, but I'm like, I wonder if that will work kind of thing. But, you've got, like, Diablo-style loot now with all these kind of inventory equipment things. You've got, different skill trees. Like
there's health meters above the enemies' heads.
Yep. And there's, like they were saying, like, if you want to be able to kind of, one-shotting high-end enemies isn't just not a thing, but you can kind of chain kill people, or you can get some of those old abilities back if you go up high enough in the assassination tree.
Enemies have levels.
Kind of thing. Yeah. And levels matter, and you have to, there are places where it's not like the old games where like you just, even if you saw like a big dude back in the, in the old Assassin's Creed games, it'd be like, well, I guarantee you I'm better at fighting than him.
Right.
I'll just outlast him or get 3 hits on him or disarm him or kill him with his own sword.
Or just do a counter kill.
Whatever, yeah. But that is just not an element of this game anymore. Yeah. And you can become proficient in doing some of that stuff if you go up the skill trees properly. But that is more of like, kind of an enhanced way to handle enemies as opposed to, mowing down legions of troops like you used to in the old games. And I find that to be a much more interesting approach.
Yep.
So in terms of kind of how they're approaching the action RPG idea, especially for a game that wasn't that before, I think Assassin's Creed captured my interest the best.
Yep. And that was my runner-up for Best RPG. My winner is God of War.
Mm-hmm. God of War would be my runner-up.
Yeah. So. And I think maybe I chose God of War over Assassin's Creed Origins because I feel like it's more of a drastic change for this franchise. Because, I mean, God of War was just straight up action-adventure. There was no semblance or hint of RPG in God of War before. With Assassin's Creed, it's kind of inched towards this. It's had a few elements kind of sprinkled in leading up to this.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like... It feels like maybe they would have gotten to Origins in like 4 more games anyway.
Right.
As opposed to kind of shutting it down and reinventing in 2 years.
Which is exactly what's happened with God of War. It is an entirely different game. And it's not just about the gameplay changes, which I like all of them, because I had completely burnt out on this franchise before. But it's also how they're handling like the story in this game. It actually like has a story that you care about, which to me is kind of one of the tenets of the RPG genre.
And something that has not really been part of Kratos up to now.
I mean, the layers that we're seeing from Kratos, just on the media and the demos that we've seen of this game so far, it's like he's a completely different character.
Well,
and now
parenthood changes a man.
Right. And now a character that I actually care about. Like, I hated him before. Like, he was one of those few characters in games where you play as him, but he didn't feel like he was the hero. Like, he just felt like he was a piece of crap. And, like, you're actually starting to see some humanity from him.
Sometimes he was the least terrible person.
Right, yeah.
But that was about as far
as
it
the lesser
went.
of all the really bad evils. And I feel like we're starting to see some layers. You're actually starting to see him kind of address the things that he's done in the life that he's led.
Although there is a couple of places with, like in the new trailer or the new bit they showed where there's that woman who's just like, you need to, like, this is you now. He's your son. You have to be what you know. And like, there's still a little old Kratos in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, he's still a badass.
Still a dick.
Yeah, he's a jerk and he's a badass.
But as they say in Guardians, I don't think anyone's 100% a dick.
Right.
And that's what we're going to learn about Kratos.
Well, I don't think it would have made sense either to turn him instantly into this sort of sympathetic character. I mean,
no.
he can't forget all the life that he's lived. And but this is what I love. I love that we're having this conversation about a God of War game, Matt. Like, what would you have said about the story in the other God of Wars? What have you said? It's like, yep, Kratos and Hades. Like, there's nothing.
Kratos got to kill some gods.
Yeah, there was no layers to it at all. So
it was funny. I bought a bunch of the God of War remasters digitally because I had them in the collection discs, but I bought them on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3 digitally.
Yeah,
and it was just this moment of like, God, there were a lot of these things.
Yeah, and they're all very much the same.
It's
just like what separated each one was the set piece moments.
Right.
It's like,
I don't think they ever got better than 2.
Yeah.
Like, I love 2.
I don't know. I think I like parts of all of them. Like, I liked...
the second PSP one is surprisingly good, too.
I never even played that
Ghost
one.
of Sparta was actually... had some really cool moments in it.
I mean, I don't know. I think every God of War game has its moments, but the expectations for that series has now changed.
Yeah.
And,
expectations for every game is
it really has. Yeah,
they're from a different era, and there's also, I think Phil Spencer or somebody was saying that like that kind of game never really caught on in Europe, so God of War just sort of was a non-entity there.
Yeah,
and they, things have to be global hits now.
They do. Yeah, when you're talking about those kind of budgets. Yeah.
So
I'm all over God of War. I cannot wait to play it. I was
really
hoping we were going to get to play it this year, but not. It's going to be early 2018.
I think actually the best thing about what they showed for God of War this year for me was that they proved that like the scale is still there.
Yeah.
Like the one thing we didn't see last year was kind of the giant creatures and he fought the giant guy and stuff. But it was the world serpent in the new footage where it's just like, oh yeah, okay, like. This is still the series where you fought the Colossus of Rhodes in the first level of God of War 2.
Well, then he spits out an axe.
Right.
Which is a little weird.
Well, it's his axe.
Yeah.
He threw it into the whirlpool at the beginning, and he was giving it back.
Right, right.
There's rules to these things.
Then we both wanted to mention one game as an honorable mention, and that's Ni no Kuni 2.
Yeah.
This game really impressed me at E3.
Yeah. Just gorgeous.
It really is. And not even just that. It's just like one thing I really like about it is where you're starting to see some more adult elements creeping into it. It's not like it's not like a kid's fable anymore. Although a kid could certainly play this and probably would be none the wiser to some of the stuff that's going on as far as how adults will perceive it.
But it just feels more like a Studio Ghibli film in the sense that they are kid friendly, but if you're an adult and you watch them, you're going to get something out of that too.
Yep.
And
I mean, this was also sort of on my hot list for best graphics of E3, just purely for artistic reasons.
And it's nice that like
this honestly is how good Persona 5 should have looked, in my opinion.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And like just the fact that like they've changed the combat up a bit, and it's not as it was a little dry in the first game.
It was, yeah.
The combat was kind of the least interesting part of it.
Yeah.
And this feels like there's a lot more happening. The graphical flash is there. It's cool. I will miss your Welsh sidekick.
Yeah.
And your sidekick, the Kingmaker sidekick in this kind of looks a lot like Lisa Simpson's.
Yeah, you're right.
That's okay.
Yeah. The other thing I like about this game showing at E3 is a lot like Mario. They showed off a ton of it. They were on every stage, demoing it with gameplay. They weren't just rolling trailers while they talked about it.
Is this
they
this
showed
year?
this game off. It is this year. It's like November 10th.
Wow.
Wow, he just
Ooh,
did some
look at that. Look at
crazy
that.
wipe.
Little sunburst transition there from Sam.
Do you have a star wipe in there? Is there a star wipe built into there? That's too bad. I've never seen that before. Okay, let's move on to best VR game.
Take away the graphics package, and Sam's getting all confident.
Best VR game, sure to be the least popular category of all the ones that we discuss on the episode today. But
Just by virtue of no one having them.
yeah, I would say it seemed like a good many VR
There's a
games.
couple of good things in there.
I mean, there's a lot of games announced for VR. A lot for PlayStation VR, and oddly enough, one of the best-looking ones was not shown
Not in the conference.
in the conference. Matt, what game was it?
Archangel.
Yeah, that game looks hot.
Which by Sundance, really Sundance Games, is that what? Skydance.
Skydance, yeah. Which is a developer I never heard of.
They're new.
And then I met one of them, and I talked to him. I'm like, hey, you guys are making Archangel. Where'd you guys come from? He's like, well, we just formed, or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they're
And I
brand
was
new.
like,
They started development on it 14 months ago.
yeah. And I was like, well, you have like one of the best looking VR games I've
Yeah.
ever seen, like visually, without a doubt.
But it is, so it's a VR game, and basically it's a mech, it's a mech game.
Yeah.
But instead of like kind of a Battletech mech, this is a Pacific Rim style,
Yeah.
like a Voltron style mech.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
giant, a super robot. as they
Humanoid-like
say.
robot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a rails shooter. Like, you're not controlling the robot's move, like walking, but you do control both of its arms.
Yeah.
And with the motion controller. You can't
Yeah.
play with a DualShock. You can't.
And this works this is for PS4 and for Vive and HD.
Yeah,
and Rift.
it's like a 2-week timed exclusive
On
on
PlayStation
PlayStation
VR,
VR for some, because if you just can't wait those 2 weeks, you're finally going to drop that $400 on a PSVR, I guess.
I'm also wondering too if this footage is actually from the PlayStation VR version.
That's a good question. When
I would not be surprised if it's not.
it looks a little too clean.
Good. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. I mean, Farpoint makes me at least waffle.
Yeah.
If Farpoint didn't exist, I would not believe it at all if this was PlayStation VR. But now that it does, there's a chance this is PlayStation VR.
Yeah,
but
I mean, look, I admit I'll probably just wait for Vive
Yeah.
on this one. But especially also because it's so motion-centric, and the Vive
Yeah.
is obviously,
Better at
smoother,
that, yeah.
better at that. But, I love giant robots. I love Godzilla stuff, and you're walking through a city, and you can shoot Gatling guns and, like, use a shield and like fire missiles and stuff, but you can also just hit stuff.
Yeah.
And like they've showed them punching like the sides out of buildings and knocking bridges down and stuff.
see,
and
the
I'm like,
destruction
yeah,
is
I'm in.
what makes me think that we're not seeing the PlayStation VR version.
Well, I saw the demo of it on the Sony stream.
Yeah.
And like what they showed there did look like PlayStation VR.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
they knocked the bridge down, and all the guys on the bridge stayed floating in the air and
Yeah.
fell over dead on nothing. You know,
Right,
like, okay,
right.
that's probably PlayStation VR. But I mean, this game is just directly up my alley. It's
Yeah.
exactly what I want. It's the kind of game, and they talk about this. And if you talk to them or you see the interviews, they'll say like, you watch it on the screen and it looks cool, but in VR, the scale that
it's
VR
gotta be
adds is
mind-blowing.
going to just make.
Well, yeah, it'll make you feel like you're actually in a
different
giant
thing,
robot. Yeah.
And there's some combined tactics stuff where you're usually with like a bunch of like APC units, and like you're helping them, and they like give you extra abilities, and if you let them get like taken out, you lose those abilities, and that can be a bad thing when you're fighting powerful enemies. Like there's stuff going on here. It's like I always say about PlayStation VR. It feels like there's more real games being made for them as opposed to quote experiences.
Yeah.
And this is just a game I want. I mean, the other one that I really liked was Moss.
You like that, huh?
I like little like
Little guy, big world games.
little guy, big world stuff, and I also like. Maybe it's just that I had experience with Redwall and Mouse Guard, but I like little mouse warrior things. I don't really have an explanation. Maybe it's because I grew up watching Secret of Nim.
Yeah.
But I like the little mouse warrior idea, and I thought that game looked cool. I'm not going to make anyone else play it unless they lose a fantasy.
Oh God.
Fantasy game draft to me.
No,
but,
we have to make a rule that you cannot force me to play VR. You can't make me to like barf, dude. That's where we got to draw the line.
Man, how many subs would we get from that? Though?
Actually, that's a good point. My pick is kind of along the lines of what you said about how it's a game that's like new. My pick is kind of a cop-out, but the way I looked at it was, what is the best VR game at E3 2017? Just period. And for me, that's Fallout 4 VR, because it's already a really good game that is you can play entirely in VR. But not only that, Bethesda's done a ton of work on this game to make it function in that medium. That's what I was most impressed about. That it wasn't just like, hey, put it on and it's just like you're playing with a controller. Like they've actually worked sort of the hand movements and things into the experience for it. I played a 10-minute demo of it at Bethesda's booth, which people have said that people had to wait 5 hours to play.
It was one of the hot things on the floor, yeah.
To play that and to play Doom, what is it, VFR?
Yeah.
I did not even play Doom. I just played this. But they let me cut in line. I didn't have to wait in line to play it. And I played it for 10 minutes and I did not get sick.
Oh,
but that
good.
is right around my cutoff. Like, usually right up to the 10-minute mark, that's when it starts to hit me.
Yeah,
so
because you know this game's like 100 hours, right?
I know, exactly, yeah. But, I mean, if you really just say, what's the best VR game there, it's really kind of hard to argue against Fallout 4 VR. I mean, as far as a game that is that big, that is of that level of quality. Again, I think we both had our caveat or have our caveats with Fallout 4.
That's really my only
neither
caveat
one
with this is like I don't like Fallout 4, so I probably don't want to play it in VR.
Yeah, and I think that's also kind of an advantage is that a lot of people will know whether they like Fallout 4 or not before they would invest in it. And I did like Fallout 4.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly more interested in Skyrim VR.
Yeah.
But that was not there.
Well, the reason I like Fallout more than Sky, you're right, it wasn't there, but I still would have chosen this game because Skyrim still feels old to me, or does feel old to me at this point. This game is a newer game. It looks better than Skyrim. So I don't know. I saw the trailer for Skyrim VR. I thought this looks way better than that.
A little bit, but it's like, I don't know. I'm used to playing Skyrim with like modded to within an inch of its life, so that doesn't really,
that's true.
It's not really a fair comparison.
Yeah. And I mean, the other part of this, too, is that this world, to me, is far more interesting. And in VR, that's a big deal. What is the world like that you're experiencing in this new medium? And to me, this world is more interesting than what I think a lot of times is sort of a barren environment that you get in Skyrim. So
Yeah, I go the other way. I think this world is not interesting to me.
Really?
That's one of my big complaints about Fallout 4 is I didn't care about the world, which is not true of Fallout in general, but for some reason... The Boston area,
but like the shanty towns and stuff like that.
Didn't grab me, and I don't know why. Look, if they make New Vegas VR, like, take my money now.
Probably gonna happen.
Like, I'd be into it for sure. Even though that game didn't really, that game looks about as bad or worse as Skyrim does, vanilla Skyrim now. But for whatever reason, Fallout 4's location just did not pull me in, and Skyrim I will always love. That that kind of Nordic area kind of thing. So
I like it.
I'd like to see that. But I get what you're saying. Like it's like if you're talking about a game that you know is already good that can only be improved by the VR experience,
and it's huge.
It's a solid choice.
You're going to get your money's worth from that game. So,
especially since they're probably going to charge you full price for it.
Oh, they are definitely without a doubt. I mean, but if you already own Fallout 4, don't you get the VR upgrade for free?
No, I think we were just making that up.
Wishful thinking.
We were hoping that would be it, but I feel like that's not going to be a thing. Maybe on PC.
That could be.
But like, I feel like if you're playing console,
I know Gears of War 4, you get the Xbox One X upgrade for free.
That makes sense. But I mean, it's like I'm basing that on like Skyrim Remastered.
Yeah.
Was free if you had the PC version already, but if you had the PS4 version or the Xbox 360 version, you could go screw yourself and pay them $60 again. So maybe it might be PC gaming might be winning again on this one, but we'll see. I don't think they said anything about that one way or the other.
All right, we're gonna move on to a dying genre, one that we talked about earlier. All the games from this genre are moving into the action RPG subgenre.
It's just not good enough for people anymore.
It used to be hands down the most popular genre in the industry. It also used to take Game of the Year awards year after year after year. That is action adventure. Matt, what is, in your opinion, of the slim pickings, because it is slim, what is your favorite your favorite action adventure game of E3 2017?
I got to go back to Spider-Man again.
Yeah, makes sense.
Again, doesn't seem to be any RPG elements in this one, so I think it still qualifies.
Yep.
That's the thing I saw. We've talked about this game like twice already.
Yep.
But I think of the increasingly limited genre, this is the one that made me the most excited.
It is also the embodiment of the
embodiment of action adventure, exactly. Like it's fitting that it's a superhero Spider-Man game as well, because like these games were always I actually always kind of made up the middle mediocre or worse realm of these games. But it's like it's fitting that Spider-Man is the one that survives and makes it into today. I don't really have much else to say about it. Like it's like it looks great. I'm excited. It's Insomniac. Awesome action adventure. Sign me up.
My winner is Middle-earth: Shadow of War.
Also a good one.
Finally got a chance to play it at E3 instead of just watching. I mean, and that game has kind of been oversaturated at E3.
Mm-hmm.
Which, look, the game's coming out soon. I get why they're doing it. But there has just been new gameplay released all over the place. So not only did I get to play it, and I will agree, it is a challenging game. And I will agree there's a learning curve. Even if you played the last game, it takes a little while for you to kind of understand the new systems and how they all work.
I'm pretty impressed at how much more complexity they've added to this.
Yeah.
Especially because the first one was a pretty simple game.
Yeah.
But they've taken that Nemesis system and run with it. And it's not... it was real easy to game that system in the last game.
It was.
And it's not gonna. I don't think that's going to be true with this one.
Nope. I just think it's. I feel like it's taking this genre to its next logical evolution, and what could perhaps be its final evolution. I feel like it's squeezing action adventures for all they're worth before it makes that jump over to where it's using RPG elements, and I appreciate that. I like that there's at least one big budget game where they're not like, well, let's just get crafting and leveling in that damn thing. Like, I appreciate that they started to look at what the essence of the action-adventure genre is, and they started thinking about how they could do more with that instead of just changing it into another genre entirely. I love the tone of the game. The quality of the production of the game is sky high.
I do think that if they make another one of these, we're going to lose it to action RPG, though.
It might. Like I said, it's
coming close.
It's getting there. But I still love the Nemesis system, in all honesty. I love how you kind of build this collection of warriors. You can deploy them how you want to. I love how the sense of progression in the game, how you sort of take over territories. I love the flexibility and how you can play it. I mean, it honestly seems like no two people will ever have the same experience playing this game.
And I'll be honest, in terms of like kind of the macro sort of like army versus army like territory thing.
Yeah.
This is what I think Dynasty Warriors should have become.
Probably. Well, I think there are kind of spin-offs of Dynasty Warriors that do that a little bit.
It was on sale like a couple months ago, and I bought Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires, which is supposed to be that. No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, you have a map and you pick where to attack, and there's some intricacy there. But like in terms of kind of being part of that, this feels like a much more immediate, like kind of on the ground sort of thing. You have more control over what's happening.
And look, I'll fully admit
I really like what they're after with this game.
Yeah, and I'll fully admit, too, that, it gets a bump from me because it's a Middle-earth game.
Yeah.
This is pretty much the only place we're getting this anymore. And I've never grown tired of it and probably never will. And so I'm glad that I'm getting to experience it again. And it's even better that it's in an interactive form. So I am all over Shadow of War. Let's move on to Best Strategy Game. This one was real tight. Yeah. Really tight. And unfortunately, and even though it was on the show floor, I did not have the time to play Warhammer Total War 2. So that's just like I want to mention that, and because there's a chance that it probably should have been Best Strategy Game of E3. That's not the type of game you play on the E3 show floor, though.
Sell on the floor. Also, I played the first one. It didn't totally blow me away. Also,
it was too much for me.
Look, I love the Warhammer 40K setting. The Warhammer Fantasy setting has never done it for me.
Yeah.
That's just my bias on it.
It was just too much. I was going to initially review the first one, and I got about 5 hours into it, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
I mean, it's Total War as well.
It was also bringing my rig to its knees. I could not find a setting to get it to run well. It would run great for a little while, and then something would happen in-game, and it would just come crashing down.
And also that we also had what I thought was one of the biggest moments of E3, which was Age of Empires 4K Definitive Edition.
Yeah.
Like, really? Who wanted that at 4K? I mean, really?
Yeah.
I was hoping, oh, they're going to do a new Age of Empires, or it's going to be totally remastered. It's going to be no, it's just high resolution.
Yeah.
It's just have fun. It's oh, okay. Fine.
That is a great game.
It is, but it's just
it's
that's something you tell me on Thursday,
right?
Not on E3.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what did you pick?
My pick turned out to be Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Wow. I'm surprised by this one.
Which I guess you could kind of say like Mario Odyssey went down, but this kind of went up for a
Yeah.
little bit because we knew it was tactical strategy RPG, but I thought it was going to be like Final Fantasy Tactics.
So did I.
Um,
I didn't think it was going to be like
The
XCOM.
fact that it's XCOM,
Yeah.
which is a gameplay style I really like,
I do too.
like I'm kind of in.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just worried that it's going to be just like a shallow imitation of XCOM, though. Like, I mean, it's for kids are going to play
look,
this. So.
even a shallow imitation of XCOM is deeper than most games that are on the shelves.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some stuff going on here that I like. Like the Mario purists are kind of like about some of it, and I totally get that. And maybe it isn't taking advantage of the two different licenses they're crossing over in a way that really makes the most sense.
Yeah.
But that's also kind of one of the things I like about it.
It's
That
pretty
That
absurd.
is completely ridiculous.
I mean, will you ever play a turn-based strategy game like this that is comedic?
No, not really. It's
They're
very
always
rare.
deathly serious.
Like, there were funny parts in, like, Freedom Force, but it
Yeah.
wasn't the focus of things.
Right.
And, like, it just, I like this kind of gameplay, and it's going to come out right in the right time when, like, not a whole lot of other stuff is out. And
I could see this being one of those games that you just grind right on through.
yeah.
You just
But it
keep
also,
chugging.
like a lot, the bounce mechanics and kind of the jumping stuff
Yeah,
and the
incorporate
cover
some of the
destruction.
Mario
Like,
aesthetic.
it feels a little more, movement related than like
Yeah.
XCOM kind of devolves into everybody behind their cover and doing
Oh,
their
it
thing.
always does,
And
yeah.
this just looks like it just goes for broke back and forth all over the place. Like, nothing stops moving. There's a lot of like cool, it looks like there's a lot of cool combos you can do with like getting your guys extra attacks or keeping the things happening and moving. And I'm just saying I'm not saying it's going to be my game of the year or anything, but like I liked what I saw, and I think
No,
I'm in.
I'll
I'm
admit
in.
that I'm more excited for it now that I've seen it than I was when I just heard about it. No doubt about it. It went up a little bit for me. It wasn't going to be one of my one-ups for E3 2017, but I had no interest in it before E3, and now I do have some interest in it. So I think that's a win.
Yeah.
My winner for Best Strategy Game of E3 2017 is a game we have been waiting forever for.
Much longer than its title.
Oh, yeah. Fortnite from Epic Games finally had its coming out party at E3 2017. I'm really surprised you didn't pick this game. Are you not into tower defense at all?
I like it okay, but it's just like this game feels like a little bit of a known quantity to me. And it's also one of those things where it's like it's a very co-op driven experience.
It is, yeah.
And that just again means that I'm going to have trouble finding people to play it with.
That's possible, but I think this was easily the best strategy game at E3. I think it's also one of the most unique games at E3. It's tower defense, co-op, third-person shooting, melee. It mashes up all these elements, and I do love tower defense. I have a total weakness for tower defense. Every time I take a flight, I end up playing a tower defense game the whole time. I don't know if there's any better time waster than playing a tower defense game. And then there's also the building element of it, with building your base. I'm so happy this game is finally coming out. I had almost written it off after a while. I just didn't think we were ever going to see it. And then to see Epic blow it out, like, it's coming out when people are wearing the T-shirts. And people were wearing Fortnite shirts all over E3.
We've known about this for like
4.5
5 years.
years.
Or something.
Yeah.
I feel like XPlay was still on when they first announced this.
Yeah. I am all about this game. Look, it's been in beta for like 3 years. All the kinks and all the bugs and everything are ironed out. By now, all the issues that people have with gameplay have all been fixed, and they've found kind of a happy medium for most players. There's just no other game like it. And in an industry where all the RTS games say that they're doing something new, and then you play them and they're identical. Turn-based strategy games, all the ones from Japan, the strategy RPGs are all kind of the same. This just completely stands out for me. And again, as someone who loves tower defense, it's just a no-brainer. Best strategy game of 2017. Which I think will happen at the end of the year as well. So we'll see.
Maybe it can change my mind.
I hope so, because I want to play it with you. So,
Okay.
Best fighting game of E3 2017. Matt, this is a category that I put a lot of faith in your opinion on. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers do as well. You're very well versed in fighting games. You're very good at fighting games. Matt, what is your pick for best fighting game of E3 2017?
Well, before E3 2017, I would have put Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite on this, like just
done
to start.
Yeah, right.
They're just like, I'll just do that now.
Yeah.
That did not turn out to be true.
Nope.
The other thing that turned out to be kind of the surprise in this space was the Dragon Ball game, Dragon Ball FighterZ, which are but made by the BlazBlue guys, and it's which looks really good. But I hate Dragon Ball, which is a problem.
That's a problem.
So my pick for this is I went the other direction in the anime space, and I'm going with Gundam Versus.
I am pleasantly surprised to hear you name this game as your best fighting game of the show.
Because this series is a big thing in Japan, in the arcades, started in the arcades, and like it's finally coming here, on PlayStation 4.
I've spent a lot of money in Japan playing this game in the arcades, getting completely annihilated, I might add. But between this and Virtua Fighter, those are the two games when I go to Japanese arcades I generally play.
Yeah, but these games are solid. I mean, if you like the Gundam stuff, you like Mech Combat, if you like Virtual On of the old days.
Yeah. And also, these machines in Japan are networked across arcades. So even if you don't have someone there to play head-to-head against...
You can play someone else in another arcade.
Yeah.
So this game is finally coming to America on the PlayStation 4, and this thing, they are blowing the doors off this thing. There are almost 100 mobile suits in this game. And they all play differently. They've all got their strengths.
It's like the biggest roster of any fighting game this year.
Yeah, it's insane. And if you have a favorite Gundam mech, it's in here.
Yep.
And
it's a gigantic roster. They put out a roster trailer where they literally just showed one character after another, and it was 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
That tells you how many there are.
And so this is like an arena fighting thing. It's 2v2 or 3v3. Each team has a certain number of points they can use to build their team, and each mech costs a certain amount of points. So like a 500-point mech is going to be bigger, stronger, sometimes slower. But if you lose that mech, your team's basically screwed. If you haven't, so you have to be good enough to warrant taking up that spot on the team. And so, like, each team kind of has to function in a way that complements each other's mobile suits. And there's some new wrinkles in this that are pretty exciting. Like, boosting is always a big deal in these games because that's how you move quickly and dodge things. So one of the new things in this game is, I can't remember there's a specific weird kind of not really English name they use for it, but you can interrupt at any time. You can cancel your boosts and boost down to the ground. And you'll see it in this footage. Sometimes where they'll boost to the side and then suddenly they'll just boost straight down. And when you do that, you instantly refill your boost meter.
Oh, wow.
Which means if you're good at it, you always have boost there to do what you need to do. And that's what really is separating the good players from the mediocre players in this game. So you've got that kind of skill element that's really going to make the difference in terms of being mobile enough to be good at this. And every mech, I mean, you're going to have to play this thing for a while to find which mechs really do it for you and which ones you're good at. But there's one in here, I promise. Somewhere in here
Out of the 100.
Is a robot you're good at. It's going to happen. And it's just, I'm a big, obviously we've gone over it, but I'm a big mech fan. I like Gundam. I'm a big fan of Gundam. And
I've never met anyone who said, I don't like Gundam.
I don't like Gundam, yeah.
Ever.
Part of Gundam will appeal to someone, which, either maybe you're a G Gundam fan, maybe you're a Universal Century fan. I'm a Universal Century fan. It runs the spectrum at this point. Gundam. So I'm excited just to see all these guys, all these characters look so good, and like the player freedom and learn to fight against 90 different mechs. I mean, that's going to be
not an especially pretty game. I would add.
it's not.
The
it's not going to win the graphics
barren,
awards.
Yeah.
But the point is really kind of doing these 3-on-3 matches and how crazy they can get with how many different abilities these guys are throwing at each other. And one of the things that always drives me nuts about multiplayer games is once I kind of learn the basics of everything, I stop being like interested in learning how to counter things and I just start getting annoyed.
Yeah.
But this game, I feel like you're going to run into like weird stuff for weeks. And so I'm looking forward to that. So this game kind of, in the absence of Marvel, and Marvel letting me down, and the other kind of really...
Another crazy transition.
And the huge kind of, the furor over Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball looks pretty awesome, like, from a visual standpoint. I just can't stand Dragon Ball, so I had to go with Gundam. Gundam's was my number 2 backup after Marvel, and then Marvel fell out. Marvel Marvel washed out. Marvel pulled a cougar at the beginning of Top Gun, and Gundam had to lead it in. And now Gundam's going to Top Gun.
All right. Well, I'm not the world's biggest Dragon Ball fan either, but my pick for best fighting game of E3 2017 is Dragon Ball FighterZ. There's a Z at the end there.
Fighter Z? I don't know.
I was blown away by this game. First of all, it's a legit 2D fighting game. It's not another one of these arena fighting games that they've been giving us for Dragon Ball for the last, I don't even know how long now.
Long time.
Almost 10 years.
They've been doing the Xenoverse stuff for a while now.
Right. But those are all arena battle games.
Yeah.
Those are all they're not just a straight up skill-based 2D sort of side view fighting game. And people have been waiting for this type of a Dragon Ball fighting game for a long time.
Yeah.
I talked to people,
And look, man, this looks more like Marvel vs. Capcom.
It does.
Than Marvel vs. Capcom.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it's built. The pedigree of the developers here. They created BlazBlue. That's a great fighting series. The game is freaking gorgeous. It's probably the best looking Dragon Ball game ever. Maybe I don't know. Some people are a little partial to the 3D graphics, but these actually are polygonal characters. They're just viewed from the side.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the one thing everyone asks each other at E3, what's your game of the show? And you get so sick of people asking you that, and you don't want to ask people that. But when you first meet people that you don't know, it's a very easy way to kind of break the oddness of meeting someone for the first time. And 3 different people told me this was their game of the show. Like, their whole game of the show. In fact, Hip Hop Gamer was one of them.
Yep.
Next to God of War. He said this and then God of War. I was not, as I've said already in this episode, I was not a fan of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. You're not either. I think it's hard for me to get over the visuals of Gundam Versus. In all honesty, that's pretty much all there was at the show. There were not a lot of fighting games at E3 2017, and so I don't want to say this won by default. It looks like a great game, and it plays great.
I'm actually curious if this game ends up being good enough that I get over my Dragon Ball aversion and play it anyway.
The kiosks at E3 were flooded constantly.
I think you
never saw one of these kiosks empty.
You mentioned earlier about will Marvel vs. Capcom be at fighting game events and stuff, and obviously it will because Capcom is going to sponsor it and make sure monetarily it's there. I can see this game organically becoming a massive force in the fighting game community because people are just going to enjoy it so much.
This is a Dragon Ball fan's wet dream, pretty much. Man.
Like as a Dragon Ball hater, I'm very happy for all the Dragon Ball fans that are going to get this game that seems to just be exactly what it should be. Yeah, frankly, I mean,
they should have been making this series all along, if you ask me. But it's hard to argue with the results. They've sold the other games great. But
what a perfect time for this to happen after Marvel drops the ball.
Yep.
And Goku's right there to pick it up again.
Yeah, the Dragon Ball.
The Dragon Ball. You wished for it, and it's here.
Yeah, I was really impressed with this game. Unfortunately, they did show that one match in the B-roll they put out, but watching people play it and playing it myself on the floor, you see a lot more of the variety in the characters. And again, it was one of the most popular games at the show for people playing. Like, there was just constantly a stream of people waiting to jump on. It made a big impact there with the fans. It made a big impact with me. So, all right, let's see what we got. We got the best driving game, and we both agree on this one. It is Forza Motorsport 7. Do we have to even talk about it again?
No,
obviously, amazing.
Turn 10 has owned this space for a long time.
It really has. And whether you're talking arcade racing or whether you're talking sim, like you're talking with Forza Motorsport, Project Cars 2 does look really good.
Yeah.
I did have to consider that a little bit. And I will say this much, too. If the crew was actually playable there, it had a strong case to make because of all the disciplines that it has in the one game and how you can seamlessly flip from one to another, the open world. And in fact, I think if the Crew 2 were playable there, I probably would have given it to the Crew 2. Because what you get with the problem with Forza Motorsport is you know exactly what you're getting. There's really no surprise to it. It's like even when they do their stage demos at E3, it's like, hey, look at this new Porsche on stage. Don't really worry about our game. Here's this awesome car that you haven't seen yet. It's like even they get it that like there's really not a lot of new stuff
to talk about.
Yeah, and which makes it hard to talk about in a show like this too. But It was the best playable racing game at E3 2017. The demo that I saw for Xbox One X just solidified its status as the best driving game there. And my honorable mention was The Crew 2, but it was not playable, so it cannot win any awards from us. So let's move on to best adventure game. Always a nebulous genre. It becomes increasingly more difficult to classify what is an adventure game and what is not with all the first-person...
And even then, it can be hard to kind of find something that stands out.
Well, it's like, so if I actually ever fire a gun, is it still an adventure game? Or if there's like lots of puzzles, is it a puzzle game? Like, so it's kind of become this almost generic genre of games that don't fit anywhere else.
Yep.
And I think your pick for this, which is a game I mentioned earlier about being really, really innovative and creative, is kind of the embodiment of that.
Mm-hmm. So I picked a game called Hidden Agenda.
Yep. Some people may not even have seen this.
Yeah, this was really underrepresented, I think.
And under the radar.
It's by the guys who made Until Dawn.
Who are making like 4 games
Yeah,
right
they are
now.
busy people right now. But so they're making this. It's called. It's by the Until Dawn guys, and they said what happened here was they noticed that a lot of people were playing Until Dawn on stream, and they were kind of everybody was watching the stream was kind of they were all kind of coaching and making decisions like as a group. And so what they've done here is they've taken this is kind of like a serial killer police procedural mystery game. And it's a multiplayer game. Everybody logs in with their phone, sort of like the Jack Pack, like the you know Jack thing.
Yeah.
And each player has like you have different agendas as a player. So it's not just you're all sitting there voting on what to do.
Right.
Like sometimes you'll get a thing that says make this character do this.
Right.
And so you have to kind of fulfill what you're trying to do and no one else knows what each other's trying to do, and everyone's kind of trying to steer the story in a certain direction to fulfill their agenda on their phone, but everyone else is trying to do the same thing. So
That's the name.
So it's like a weird co-op / competitive, but also we're watching a movie together kind of experience. And it was like, wow, that's like nothing. I don't have anything to compare that to.
And here's the other thing, too, is this whole PlayLink thing, which is Sony's directive of using smartphone to incorporate into gameplay. It's like this little offshoot of Sony's development. So this isn't the only game that uses PlayLink. There was 2 others that were debuted at E3 that may have completely gone off the radar. This whole program kind of went off the radar for most people.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it.
And this is by far the most interesting of all the games for it. It's probably the most unique game at E3 2017. There's really nothing else like it. There hasn't been, and there wasn't anything else announced that could be coming down the pipe either. So I think that's a great pick. And it was one of those things after I'd already selected mine, I was like, I think Matt's pick might be better. Because I tend to stray towards creative, innovative ideas instead of just picking the status quo. But what I went with for this category was a game that I actually played and watched be played and kind of started to understand its scope and also realized that it had a huge presence at the show. The stuff that they had shown in the press conference was different from what I saw them play, which was different from what I played. And that game is Detroit Become Human. I think I gave it Best Adventure Game last year, too. In fact, I think this might be the only game that won the same award 2 years in a row. Yeah. This game's coming together, man. It is. It really is. It's almost all there.
I think the most exciting thing about it for me is it really looks like they're getting away from the kind of the constant QTE stuff.
Yep.
And they're making it much more. I mean, frankly, they're making it much more of an adventure game.
They are. Yeah, I'm way more excited for this game than I was for any of his prior games. More than Heavy Rain, more than Beyond Two Souls, more than Fahrenheit.
For sure.
I feel like this is him hitting his stride and finally figuring out what he's been trying to make all this time.
Yeah, and embracing, they're leaning into the stuff that makes, the Quantic Dream games unique as opposed to
they're not getting rid of that.
Yeah. They're not like bringing it closer to being an action adventure game.
Right. No, not at all.
They're pushing it the other direction, which I think is the right move.
Yeah, because then you just become another whatever. Right. If you become an action adventure game, you become a part of Dead Tree Media and video games, which is the action adventure genre.
And on top of that, then I have to compare you to Spider-Man, and you're not going to come out of that very well. We know that.
Yeah, I was, and look, I'm not the world's biggest fan of his prior games. I've said it before, and I'll probably say it again, but you
got to appreciate the effort.
I'm coming around on it because of what he's doing with this game. So It showed great, too. The demo that they showed at the show was excellent. It makes you think, this game does, and it seems like we don't get enough of those anymore. So that is my pick. Next up, Best Trailer. This is another category. We both chose the same winner, and I think everyone in the world at this point would choose this same winner.
This might be the most agreed upon thing in gaming.
In fact, I wish I could have had the foresight to say, hey, chat, guess what Best Trailer is, then do Best Adventure, and then look at their responses, because I think they would have all guessed.
Yeah.
It's Beyond Good and Evil 2. Best video game trailer I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
A long time. And then hearing about what the game actually is as more information trickled out over the next couple days, it just makes the trailer even more interesting to me. It's an open world, open universe.
Yeah.
I guess you can't even say world. Open universe action adventure. I guess Michel Ancel called it GTA in space. It is M-rated. It's going to be edgy, just like this trailer. I know a lot of people were like, whoa, all the F-bombs and whatnot. That is what the game is going to have. This is just really a proof of concept piece. It's obviously not what the game looks like. I don't even think with Xbox One X, any game is going to look this good. It's just not. But as a proof of concept and what the game is going to be like, I am all over it. I saw a lot of negative comments on Sifted about this.
Really?
People who thought it completely betrayed the tone of the first game and doesn't make sense and within kind of what they had established before. But I would contend that wasn't working. It just wasn't. I mean, it sold 100,000 copies across all platforms in its first month. Whatever it was about that first game, whether it was the tone or it was Jade or the photography or whatever, it wasn't working. And so if you're going to put big budget AAA dollars into developing a sequel or a prequel or whatever it would be, you have to make changes to it.
Yeah. Well, and also I like Jade and Paige and that whole thing, and I would certainly like to see some resolution on the end of that game at some point. But the thing that was always most interesting to me about Beyond Good and Evil was the world. Or the universe.
I guess. Yeah, for sure.
It was certainly implied to be bigger.
Yeah.
And if this shows me more of that, and it is, and also seems to be kind of interested in explaining why there was a talking pig walking around in the first game, and no one thought that was weird.
Yeah.
It was like I was waiting for someone to explain why there were talking animals in this world, and it just never freaking happened.
Yeah.
And if this delves into that and what that they were used for kind of space exploration and that kind of thing, if it delves into how that works, I'm kind of super into it.
How can you not love the characters in this? Every single character they introduce is completely fascinating.
My girlfriend doesn't like monkeys, so I think she's out.
but he's great. This CG is incredible, by the way. They should make a movie out of this. I would go pay and watch it. No questions asked.
Oh, I would certainly prefer to see this than another Minions film. But maybe I'm the exception.
Yeah, that could be.
In the mainstream audience. I feel at this point I'm not going to try to make calls for that.
That's really a good idea.
But I'm super interested in it. I just, it was disappointing to me that it's so far out.
Yeah.
They said, I think Ancel said day 0 of development, basically. The demo they were showing behind closed doors shows you can zoom from a solar system down to that skyscraper they showed.
Yeah.
But I guess that demo didn't even have graphics until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, this game is way out.
It's only been 15 years, so.
Oh yeah. So, and and of course we've also talked about the Vivendi thing, the Vivendi takeover potential. Were they showing these games to kind of show this is what we're doing in case we're not here next year.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they're showing this E3 helps prove to some of the investors that hey, we should let these guys keep going with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because clearly they've got a strong lineup, strong ideas, they had the best press conference. I would say still.
Yeah. And walking around E3, I was surprised to hear that everyone agreed with us that Ubisoft had the best press conference. I thought we might be outliers there, but we were not. Okay. Only 2 categories left in our Best of E3 2017 awards. You might want to start getting maybe some questions into the chat right now, because I have a feeling we're not going to talk too long on this next topic, and then all that's left is Game of the Show. So, next to last topic, penultimate topic, biggest surprise from E3 2017.
Yep. My biggest surprise was Metroid Samus Returns. In part because it was not announced during the spotlight. You had to wait. It accidentally popped up 30 minutes later when I was getting ready to go to the show floor. I'm like, wait, what?
Little did you know you had a clue, though. You had a clue, though, that this game might be on the way.
Yeah.
which was when Nintendo
shut
down
the fan-made
remake of Metroid 2.
Like, I'd seen the rumors that there were 2 Metroid games going to
Right.
be announced, but I would never have guessed that one of them was a remake
of Metroid 2, yeah. Which, for those of you who don't know, is a Game Boy game that was monochromatic.
Yeah, original Game Boy game, and just, it was pre-Super Metroid, so it didn't have the advancements that Super Metroid brought to the table that made it a much more playable game. And so, to me, Metroid 2 was the hardest Metroid game to go back to.
Yeah.
And,
this is, by the way, this is a remake.
This
is not a remaster. This game is completely being redone.
It's by Mercury Steam.
Yeah, which makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, I agree.
Because didn't they do the Castlevania handheld game?
They did Mirror Fate.
That was really
which
bad.
Was not great.
It was actually really bad.
Again, you kind of got to trust in Nintendo's refusal to let mediocre stuff come.
It just may never come out.
Yeah, that's true.
Nintendo will just can it.
Well, I mean, it's I got it pre-ordered already, so it better come out. At the very least, the squishy Metroid amiibo better come out, because I really want that.
Yeah, that's a really cool. That's a really cool amiibo.
But this is I was disappointed that Metroid Prime 4 was basically a shut the hell up and go back in your room announcement, whereas this is this is coming out in September. It's exactly what I want out of a handheld Metroid game. I'm a little confused why they didn't up-res it and put it on the Switch.
Yeah.
But hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, I actually kind of stepped on what you're saying there a little bit too before you got to finish, and I apologize for that. But one good point that you made was that this was not announced in the press thing. That ends, and then they show. Wait, did they announce this right afterwards?
No, they
showed some Mario, didn't they?
Mario Odyssey
for 20 or 30 minutes, and then after that, Reggie shows up.
Oh, by the way,
and it's so weird how they announced this. Mm-hmm. It's I don't understand it at all. But
again, I'll take it.
Good things come to those who wait. Exactly. My biggest surprise, we already talked about it, is Beyond Good and Evil 2. The reason it was a big surprise to me was because Michel Ancel said that it wasn't going to be shown. It wasn't coming. I mean, he lied. And it's should I have been fooled, or should you just trust when somebody says something, they're telling the truth? So regardless of why, I really thought there was no way this game was going to be shown at E3. And then I even remember when it first came up during the press conference, oh, by the way, our live reactions to press conferences are still coming, and they're worth watching, by the way, even a few days after the conferences are over. But I remember we were watching Ubisoft's press conference live, and you saw the pig, and you said right away, Beyond Good and Evil. Because I think you thought it was Paige, I'm guessing.
It was either Paige or a relative, because that's what his hands look like.
Right.
So,
and I think I still said no.
Yeah.
It can't be. He said it's not going to be there. And then it was. So to me, that was the biggest surprise that I got at E3 was that. So it's time to move on to our best of show, the biggest award we can bestow upon any game from E3 2017. Again, get your questions into the chat right now, because when we finish with this topic, we're going to throw to your questions immediately. So if you want to bitch us out for our picks or tell us how awesome we are for the games we chose, have at it. So best of show, Matt. I'll give you a drum roll. What is your best of show for E3 2017?
It's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Did anybody not guess that at this point?
It's, I wanted to be, last year I got to be super esoteric and hipster and pick a VR game that nobody cared about. But no, I gotta go with Spider-Man on this one. It was definitely my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Aside from Anthem. If I could give Anthem that, I would, but it's not playable.
It wasn't playable. So. Yeah, there was no demo of it there at all. I think the one caveat I have with Spider-Man, not just the QuickTime events, which do turn me off a little bit.
They've never bothered me, but I'm a Shenmue fan.
Yeah. So. Is that it does feel like an older style game. Not just because of the QuickTime events, just because...
I'm wondering if that's part of why I like it.
It may be. It could be. But, when I started considering, what's going to be my game of the show, this game was certainly in the running. It was certainly in my top 5, easily. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of what made me disqualify it, is that it did feel kind of like a game from, the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 era, but in Gen 8. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of what I disqualified it for. But I can completely understand you in particular, this being your game of the show. As soon as you saw this demo, I think you knew it was your game of the show.
I'm pretty up there.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
As long as it was playable. As long as it was being
And they
played,
demoed this very thing
it,
in a theater in Sony's booth. So.
It's the same thing. It was, which I guess is kind of disappointing, because sometimes you see the in-theater stuff and you get a little more. Horizon Zero Dawn, a couple years, last year, I think, was... you get an extra like 15 minutes on top of
Right.
the press conference
Yeah,
demo
yeah.
or whatever. But like,
And they did. They extended the demo a little bit
Yeah.
in Sony's booth as well, so they showed a little more.
but like, yeah, I mean, just I'm a sucker for superheroes done well, and this is that. And also, it's Insomniac, and it's great to see Insomniac doing something cool and different again. And on top of that, this is apparently a modified version of the Fuse engine.
I know.
What?
Isn't that insane?
What?
I don't even know if
Awesome.
I believe it.
I don't know, but awesome, but
Yeah.
great. Well done to them, and I'm super happy about it to the point that I don't even care that the spider on his chest is white.
Yeah, a lot of other people do.
Yeah, I'm army of one on that one, but no, they've got me convinced now.
All right. Well, I'm sorry I didn't actually give you the Sound Machine drum roll. I totally forgot about it.
Oh, it's fine.
I also have a feeling
That drum roll takes too damn long.
I also have a feeling that the battery is so low in this. If I had done it twice, there wouldn't have been one.
I can't wait to hear what this sounds
Yeah,
like.
let's see. So, my game of the show for E3 2017 is it made it! Super Mario Odyssey.
Woo!
I'm falling in line with pretty much everybody else at this point, I think. I think it's going to be hands down the most chosen game for Game of the Show.
I think you're right.
And I totally get why. I think the biggest part of it is
It has a T-Rex.
Yeah,
That's why.
surely that's why. I think the biggest part of it is that so much of it was shown at the show, and every little bit that was shown was just top shelf quality. Graphics aside, there are moments obviously where the game still looks amazing. I saw a lot of moments where it didn't look amazing, but the gameplay and the objectives and things like that were always completely polished. Everybody knows that platforming in Mario games, 3D Mario games, is sublime. It's there. I don't think Nintendo will ever change the algorithm that it uses to handle Mario's locomotion in 3D. But what really sort of brought it home for me was not only was the platforming great, but all the different characters that you capture with Cappy, they all control great. And they all do entirely different things. The gameplay variety in this game is just through the roof. And to be perfectly honest with you, that is what I have loved about 3D platformers from the beginning, is that you aren't just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I thought especially with Super Mario 3D World, it kind of fell into this trap where it just kind of felt samey the whole way through. Still an amazing game, don't get me wrong. Like, one of my favorite games from that year. But I mean, when you talk 3D platformer Mario games, you're splitting hairs because they're all amazing. And I feel a little bit of that magic that I felt from Super Mario 64 from the first time I played it, a game that I'll always remember as being sort of that breaking moment in my life where I was like, hey, this is probably what I want to do. I see where games are going. And I'm seeing a good bit of that sort of adventure element, discovery element from Super Mario 64 creeping into this game. Still hate New Donk City, probably always will. I'll probably never get over it. I don't like that there are humans in this game at all. It doesn't make any more sense when you actually play it. But I got to play so much of this game at E3, and all of it was just top shelf, man. And like all the objectives were just crazy and diversified, and the Cappy stuff, just being able to take control of almost anything that you see in the game, it makes you look at a Mario game completely differently. It makes you look at Mario's world completely differently. And like I said, the controls are just freaking sublime. Like, you can just pick up the controller and you immediately feel like you're just on it already. But that's not all you do in it. And I think that's what kind of set it apart for me. It's crazy how Nintendo has, it released what could be the game. It has what could be the top two contenders for Game of the Year in the same year. Think about that.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
They need it.
Look, I think this game is going, just like Zelda, is going to be absolutely enormous. I don't think it'll be as long as Zelda, but I think when you look at the length of Breath of the Wild in comparison to previous 3D Zelda games, I think you're going to look at the length of this Mario game in the same way as when compared to the length of previous
I definitely
3D
get
Mario
the
games.
feeling that this is like a 60-hour game.
Like a huge
Yeah.
freaking game. If Nintendo will show us that much. We saw like 3 hours of this game. And it also kind of has like some of that Zelda moments where you just screw around in the world and have fun. And I think that's something that's kind of been missing from 3D Mario games for a while. Like, just the fun of exploring and just cruising around and hopping around. Like, I feel like it's been lost a little bit.
That is the one thing I think I would say Mario Galaxy came short on.
Yeah.
The places you went were very specifically designed to be
exactly
a little challenge you got through, but there was never really a chance to run around and see stuff.
Yeah, and explore and find stuff. And, like, there's some areas of this game where you don't really platform at all. Like, you're just kind of running around hunting for stuff, like climbing trees, and some of the action, it's almost borderline action-adventure, I guess is one way to put it. Really impressed with it. Totally sold me. I was not over the moon over this game before. I played it at E3 2017. I am all over it now, Sifters. It is the real deal. Nintendo is on quite a tear. I guess that's the best way that I could put it. So there you have it. Our best of show picks for E3 2017. Matt is Spider-Man, and I am Super Mario Odyssey. So 2 great games. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. But we playing one before the other.
Yeah, one of them we will play much sooner.
That's true. So. Yeah. All right, let's see if you guys have any questions. See if you hate us for our picks for best of E3. There's a ton of questions. Maybe I asked too early. Let's see.
It was one I saw.
Here's one from Vox91. Do you think Microsoft is way too risk-averse, given its reliance on previously established brands like Crackdown and disregarding building new IP? Yes.
Yes, for
yes,
sure.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. I think we've talked about it before. It's killing me, Larry. Like, I don't get it, man. And it's like, I go in to see the Xbox One X, to see the demo, and what do I see? I see Gears of War, and I see Forza Motorsport and Minecraft. It's like, at least get, like, Crackdown running on the thing for me to see. It's just...
That was the weird thing, how many games were not taking advantage of the Xbox One X's extra... The X-bonks, as I prefer to call it now. They weren't taking, like Assassin's Creed is going to run the same 4K 30 frames a second on both Xbox One X and Pro. It's like, so what are you using that? They asked them, like, what are you using this? And they said, nothing. We're not using the extra power on the Xbox One X for anything. So what are you doing? Like, what are we here for? Kind of thing, But if they had some stuff that was unexpected, some things that we didn't know about. I mean, we keep going back to Scalebound, but it's like, man, that at least gave you something A in the fantasy genre and B that we haven't already played 5 times.
I know. I'll never understand why that game was canceled.
Really
and
weird.
Crackdown is allowed to languish in development.
Crackdown is allowed to live.
I mean, seriously, it makes no sense to me. And look, I mean, the last demo we saw of Scalebound was not good.
No.
In fact, it was borderline embarrassing. And maybe he just couldn't take, or Microsoft just couldn't take the ridicule from that. I don't know.
Well, they're going to take it again from Crackdown.
They are, yeah. They're going to take it tough from Crackdown.
I guess get used to it.
Yeah.
OTT apps? Or
OTAPs, I think is what I call them, yeah.
Out of all the games that were shown, which do you think is the longest away from being released?
Beyond Good and Evil 2. Or actually, maybe not.
I mean, that's
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Well, Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm going to say Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, that could be too. Because Nintendo's not going to release that until it's perfect.
Because look, I'll believe Beyond Good and Evil 2 is going to happen when they actually... I mean, when Nintendo says a game's coming out, I believe it's coming out one day, probably, unless you're Pikmin 4. The hell is that game, Ben?
Well, they said they're still working on it.
Yeah, but they also said it was done.
They did, yeah.
So
I think they're reworking it for.
But I think Metroid Prime 4 is. I mean, we'll probably see it next year. We'll probably see it again in 2019.
I think it'll come out before Beyond Good and Evil 2.
I see the thing
because
about
there's no
Beyond
way
Good
it's
and Evil.
Going to be like an open world game like.
Right,
Beyond
but
the
thing about Beyond Good and Evil 2 is I don't know if I believe that game is ever going to actually happen. Period.
Right. You think it was just like them saying, "Hey,
we'll
throw $1 million to a trailer house to create this CG pacifier"?
Yeah, exactly.
And with no intention.
Or just to get people talking and excited about Ubisoft because look, what they need right now is people saying what they're doing currently is what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So that Vivendi doesn't come in and gut them. So I felt that was as much a business strategy move as it was, hey, we're making this cool thing. Especially because they only just started making this cool thing. So, yes, maybe Beyond Good and Evil 2 might take longer in terms of it will never come out. But I feel like of the games that I believe are not going to be vaporware, I'm positive will not be vaporware. Metroid Prime 4 is a long way from coming out.
It'll probably be like the last great hurrah on Switch, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, and
it'll be that carrot that Nintendo dangles out there all this time to get people to buy Switch.
And or if it's even that,
because if you think about it,
it might be on this Switch and the next system.
Yeah,
it might be that far out.
It could be that bumper game that Nintendo likes to do anymore. Because if you think about it, Zelda's out, Mario's out. What does Nintendo have left? Mario Kart's out. Smash Brothers. I mean, if you think about Nintendo games that really move hardware, it's starting to run out of those options. And now it's announced a Kirby game and a Yoshi game. And it's kind of shot its load here right out of the gate. It needs that carrot to dangle out there.
Right. If you need second half of 2018 is going to need something to shake things up. And I don't see anything... Unless they make that sequel to Zelda real fast
or
with the same assets, the Pokemon RPG. But again, just a quick, we didn't really see anything. But I think you're right. Like Smash, even if it's not like a totally originals, if it's just the Wii U Smash Brothers, updated, ported with new characters added, I think that'll get you there.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be exciting. This year is going to be one of the best Nintendo years ever. So inevitably, next year is going to be kind of a lull. So I guess we'll see where they go from there. But it's not going to include Metroid Prime 4. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. W. Matthew, given E3 was mishandled so badly, do we need E3? Given PAX, EGX, Gamescom, TGS, etc., should E3 just go away and let the events that handle it better take over?
No, because E3 isn't those events and isn't supposed to be those events.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. It's getting caught in between.
Yeah, it's trying to become something like that, but it never...
It's not. It never was supposed to be.
It was never supposed to be that. And if you want it to be that, you need to overhaul a whole lot of things about it other than the ticket sales.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that. So there's two directions they can go. They can either make it more of a public-facing convention... and I mean convention, not expo, because the third E means expo.
There's a difference between expo and convention,
I don't care how into dental equipment you are, you would not be particularly interested to attend a dental expo.
Right.
It's not a thing. So if they can make that pivot, it could become something functional in that regard. But it's never going to be, it's never going to be a PAX in the sense that, PAX is clearly there for the attendees that are there as fans, and that's what it's there to celebrate and be. E3 at best could become like a TGS in the West, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think it should go away.
There's no I mean, look, maybe you fold it down and don't make it a big spectacle. You only take one hall. Everything gets much less bombastic and crazy, and it focuses really hard on being the industry meeting place that it's originally was supposed to be, and the spectacle just kind of goes away a little bit. I could see that being it. But look, E3 in some form will always be there. What we think of as E3 as outsider or enthusiasts is different than what E3 really is at its cold beating black heart.
As people who've been there for decades and understand what it started at and what it's turned into, I don't think it'll ever go away, ever. It's going to go through some growing pains while it tries to figure out how to navigate that middle ground between fan event and industry event. And it could be that it gives up and it just says, hey, this isn't what we're about. This isn't our brand. Because it really isn't.
No.
The brand is an industry brand, industry-related brand. And maybe after a while it figures out, hey, this fan thing isn't for us. We're not doing it very well. And, I mean, attendance could go down next year as well.
Yeah, I will say this, and I heard a couple people mention something like this, that kind of a halfway solution if you don't want to just turn it into let all the convention goers come in. Add another tier of badge that is just the influencer badge. If it's because if you're really just kind of trying to Trojan horse YouTubers into this, just make that something you can let people in for.
Yeah.
Instead of media, don't make that media, make it influencer. Make that segment of the media or streaming or social media, that functional branch now that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Create a new badge for that and let those people in.
Yeah.
That gets you what you need, I think.
Or maybe just give them a whole day to themselves where they can go in and set up all their streaming gear. Because I think what you're seeing, too, is that as more of those people and the press has more gear to carry around, it becomes more of a problem. Because there's just stuff everywhere. There's tripods set up everywhere, and people set up in walkways and shoot. It's That's the hard part, I think, about bringing the public in, is they're not used to working next to people who are trying to cover the games.
Right, and I think one of the big fights they're going to have on their hands coming up is I think they're inevitably going to want to make it 4 days, and I don't think the industry wants it to be 4 days.
Yeah. No, everyone's sick of it. They're like, man, this is too long already. So.
Well, also that's a ton of extra money spent on the part of all the publishers for just how you got to put everybody up another day in the hotels. You got to rent the space longer. You got to do. It's a big expense for everyone involved.
It's a lot of money.
And you're kind of hitting the point where like, oh, we do one industry day and then 2 public days, but everyone's like, 1 day is not enough to get E3 done.
Yep.
Cramming all games media's appointments into one Tuesday, especially when the show floor didn't even open till noon.
Yeah.
How do you do that? They have a lot of logistical conversations to have that they probably should have had.
They should have had already. Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting seeing that develop over the next year.
Yep. Wolffox 10JC Anthem Holiday 2018, March 2019, or Holiday 2019?
My bet right now would be Q1 2019.
Yeah.
They're saying end of 2018.
Yeah.
But I feel that's going to slip to 2019, but I think you're going to get saved by the hard deck of the fiscal year. I think they're planning it for that fiscal year, and you're not going to see it slip past that.
I don't think they're going to pull another Mass Effect Andromeda.
True.
I don't think they'll let that happen. I honestly think it's like Q3, Q4 2019.
I think it's going to be Q1 2019.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
I think they're going to their target right now is end of 2018. I don't think they're going to make that.
No.
I think it's going to slip, but I think they're not going to be able to push it past the fiscal year. Hopefully that does not torpedo it the way Andromeda kind of ended up. But I think they've learned from Andromeda, and Andromeda was very much about kind of a middle management production problem thing, and I feel like Edmonton is not going to run into those same problems because they've done it before.
It's true. Let's see. This is one for you. C. Crawl. Did they ever say why his Spider-Man costume is different?
I don't think they said why, but they said there is a reason why. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the whole, people are complaining about a thing, so the developer says we have a reason for it to be that way, because the last time that happened, it was quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5, and that was stupid. But I'm not sure what reason you could give to make the spider white, but I don't really care that the spider's white. So
I don't care about any of it. I really don't.
Spider-Man has had a whole lot of different costumes, so one that has a white spider on it is fine for me. I don't care. And it's a totally different Spider-Man from any other. It's its own continuity. It's its own Peter Parker. It's its own everything. So fine. Focus on the fact that Miles Morales is in it. That's more interesting to me.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with that? Because apparently he's not just that cameo at the end of that thing. He's part of it. He's part of the story. So how are they going to fold him into the storyline? That's way more interesting than whether the spider's white.
From that Japanese dude, does Switch have the best first year of console life in the history of consoles? No. No, you think it's the best first year for a console ever?
No, I mean, I figure he's mostly just talking about Zelda and Mario in the same year. That's a pretty good lineup. If you're just talking about what you get to play in the first year.
2 games?
I don't know.
Let me start thinking back to Xbox 360 and how many games that were great from third parties came out in the first year of its life. Because, see, that's the problem when you try to compare Nintendo consoles to any other console. Not only do you get the great first-party stuff from the other consoles, you also get the great third-party stuff, and you get none of that with Nintendo. So you're basically saying,
true, 2
amazing games, don't get me wrong. I mean, at least Mario seems to be shaping up to be an amazing game. Against, and even if you look at the Xbox 360, it had 2 or 3 good to great first-party games, and then 15 or 20 third-party games that were good to great. I mean, that becomes like an algorithm of, are 2 amazing games better than 20 great games? To me, they're not. It's like, that's 12 months. So you figure you take a month to play those 2 amazing games. What do you do the other 10 months?
Well, so far I just put the Switch in its case and played other things on other systems.
Right,
so.
but that's what I'm saying. So if you're comparing like Switch's first year to first years of other consoles, that's a tough comparison for Switch.
I mean, look, the first year of the Switch has 2 very high peaks in it, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot of interest for me. So I guess a case could be made, but like, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at a bunch of different first-year lineups of things. I feel like in the end, I probably like the Dreamcast more than anything else in its first year.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was the only good year it really had.
Yeah, I mean, it started real strong. In terms of the first year in the West, it started real damn strong.
Yeah. From Fruit Eater, Xenoblade Impressions, still doubting the release. It's Xenoblade.
I do still doubt the release.
I do, yeah.
Also,
even though they announced again that it's coming this year.
Yeah. Also, you may have noticed that it did not show up in our best RPG category, even for me, and that's because holy crap, I hate the character designs.
Well,
so much.
I watched like I think on our master stream we ended up watching like 40 minutes of that game, and it just didn't do anything for me, man. Like after watching a game like Ni no Kuni or whatever, it's like.
But it also, as someone who played the first one and Xenoblade X a lot. It doesn't feel like it's really advancing much.
It's just
in
the
any
same game,
way.
it seems like, yeah.
Except
which is how they're going to get it done so quickly.
Right, except it has a much less interesting narrative as far as I can see. So it's just not... It's I'm getting a little... That was almost one of my downs.
Yeah.
But I'm really... Yeah, I know they keep saying holiday this year, but it's just like, you won't give me an actual day... I'll see you in February.
Yeah, I don't really believe it still. From Sleepy Droid, did Microsoft drop the ball showing what Xbox One X can really do?
Case could be made.
I think it was what they showed at the press conference was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think between Forza and Metro, you get a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I think the main...
If you can watch those 2 games and not be impressed and wonder, oh, wow.
I think the main weakness is that, like, there's just not that much that's doing that.
Yeah.
That's the thing about I can't even predict what this thing's going to sell.
It should. I'll tell you what it should have done. It should have done the presentation I got in the Xbox booth on stage, because everyone who was in that room was impressed by that demonstration. Everybody. Nobody walked out. Obviously, you can't simulate the Atmos, the Dolby Atmos.
Right.
But everything else you could have easily done.
Again, it does make a difference seeing these things with your own eyes.
And it was tech verbiage heavy. But I think you're selling your audience short to think that they couldn't understand what they were talking about in that presentation.
Well,
I
also,
totally think they could have.
You know, didn't they kind of admit that this thing's an enthusiast product?
Yeah.
Is that what they're saying? So why don't you present it
as an enthusiast product? Good point. Really good point. Let's see. I got a couple more. Nimrod 80. I think it's talking about Anthem. Will it be comparable? Will the campaign be comparable to Destiny or a full BioWare RPG campaign? That's a good question.
It is a good question. I mean, I think if you're looking at if they're building off kind of what they did in SWTOR, the Old Republic, like that, they did a pretty good job of an old style BioWare story in an MMO. Like, it wasn't really incorporating the later lessons and the dynamism of Mass Effect, but they did a pretty good job of kind of simulating what KOTOR 3 mechanically might have been if they'd made it by 2006 in that game, which is maybe not the greatest thing to say about a game that came out 5 years later. But I do think, especially looking at the Bazaar scene at the very beginning, I feel like this game is going to deliver the BioWare narrative while it's delivering kind of that more open, Destiny-style gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we already saw a more living, breathing world in that opening scene than you ever got in Destiny. Mm-hmm. It actually looks like it's lived in instead of this weird, palatial, space station,
And Destiny 2 is really pushing in the more organic direction. You can see you can see what they showed is much more
Well, just think about the first teaser they ever put out.
Yeah.
Like, that was completely out of character for Destiny 1 promotion.
Mm-hmm. So, like, I think Destiny, again, the people keep drawing very direct comparisons between Destiny 2 and Anthem, and it's just like, Anthem is so far out, you're not even going to have Destiny 2 in the mind when that thing is finally ready to be released. Anthem is going to have to take the lessons of Destiny 2 into account during development, I think.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to have to pay attention to how Destiny 2 functions, how it's received, and how it works, and how it doesn't work. So, but I would be very surprised if Anthem doesn't deliver on the BioWare story front. I don't expect it to drop the ball the way Destiny 1 did.
We'll see. Here's the last one, the Legacy. Should Microsoft have marketed the Xbox One X as a next-gen console in name instead of a mid-gen console? Yes.
Probably.
I think so. I absolutely think so.
Like, I understand why they didn't.
Why?
But
Why?
Because they want it to be very clear that your old stuff will work on this thing. They want it to feel like part of the family.
Yeah.
And that you can carry over all your Xbox One things to it.
Then they should just name it Xbox and just be done with it.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like, if you're going to keep adding, letters on
the other thing
end,
is, like,
what's next, Z? Like,
well, also the other thing is, like, are there really enough Xbox One owners to make that decision for them on that? Like, it's like, wouldn't it be better to kind of try to attract the larger audience by making this thing feel like a jump?
yeah. I think it's harder to sell something for $500 when there isn't a clear indication that it's a major leap.
Yeah.
Because they're going to look at the Xbox. Okay, I got an Xbox One, and then you came out with the Xbox One S. And that didn't really seem to improve the graphics all that much. Mm-hmm. But I did get, like, HDR, and I could play 4K Blu-rays. And now we've got the Xbox One X, so I'm assuming it's just another small incremental improvement in some way that I may or may not understand. Like, it totally should have been called something else. Like, people will understand it's backwards compatible. They'll figure it out. Well, no one spends $500 on something without doing research to understand what it does and doesn't do.
Well, it's also like, I think I think the public at this point is probably more surprised if something doesn't have backwards compatibility, because the phone thing is like, you're going to buy an iPhone 7S or you want to buy the iPhone 8,
right?
Yeah. But when you buy that iPhone 8, you're pretty sure that everything you had on the iPhone 7 is going to work on it, right? So I think you could just piggyback on that expectation with it and use whatever new name you wanted to call
Xbox 2, I guess is what it would be. I don't even know.
Xbox.
So then they
got
Xbox
again
2 as Xbox 2X. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like they've dug themselves a hole that they're gonna have a problem getting out of.
I mean, I do feel like you're right, and like whenever they decide to make that leap, the next one's just gonna be called the Xbox.
Yeah. It's just a platform at that point.
It's just your next Xbox.
And like what you said about iPhones, about how people have come to just assume that when they get the new one, it's going to work with all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. Eventually, that's going to happen with consoles too. Yeah. They just haven't done it enough times because they don't put one out every year. Although
also because we're coming off of a generation where that was impossible. With the PS3.
Yep.
So it's just not a thing you can assume yet. But I think
not with Sony, but
I think going forward you will. Though.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I don't think that assumption is going to be a hard thing to drive into people, especially if it becomes policy for everybody. And there's no reason it couldn't become policy for Nintendo too, because the Switch is a fairly simple architecture that can be carried forward to a more powerful next system.
That's for sure. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Sifted's Best of E3 2017 awards. It's been fun. It was a great show. I hope you guys got a lot of use out of Sifted over E3. There's still a ton of more content coming for curation. I think we've already curated 800 pieces of content to our E3 hub. Like we said during the show, if you guys maybe missed the show and now you're overwhelmed or you've been away for a couple days, man, using that E3 hub is freaking genius. You just click the channel nav and it drops down and you can sift that 800 pieces of content by 60 different categories. I don't think people get it. It's amazing. Like, to have that much content be sifted by that much of those micro channels. Like, it's really handy. If you like Japanese RPGs or just Japanese games in general, there's nowhere you can go to say, hey, what happened at E3 2017 with Japanese games? There's dozens of categories that Sifted does, but I don't think people even use it. Like, I looked at the traffic.
I wouldn't get all my picks for this done in time if it wasn't for that.
I looked at the numbers for our E3 hub, and people are just using the homepage. It's like, no, you're... It's so frustrating for me. It's like it does this awesome stuff, and either nobody gets it or nobody uses it. I don't get it. So anyway,
you should have like a video pop up that comes up if someone like uses the homepage too many times, and you're just like, "Hey,
yo, bro,
what are you doing? Right here."
It just has a hand. It goes. But I do want to thank everybody who was on for all our live streams over E3. We had a great time. Like I said, still lots of archives coming from that stuff. All our live reactions to the things that happened in the press conferences are coming. Thank you to everybody who donated over E3. I know some of you guys would have said, like, buy a pizza with, like, this money or whatever. I wish I had. I didn't eat hardly anything all week, which probably is good for me anyway. But thank you guys for the donations. Those of you guys who hit your elite status, we'll be recognizing you guys next week in our next regular episode of Game Face. What else do I have? I think that's it. Just thanks for coming along for the ride. It was great. Matt and I are going to try to get a little bit of rest this weekend. Although I think I am appearing for the first time ever on an episode of our community Podcast Reload. So you may hear from me in the next couple of days on that show as well, probably doing some more E3 wrap-up. So
I picked up a new game on one of the E3 sales, so I'm going to start playing Ghost Recon Wildlands.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Because I figured I should probably play the best-selling game of the year.
Yeah, probably a good idea. At least for that frame of reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed our E3 coverage. Like I said, there's more coming. But it's been another great and crazy ride, let me tell you. I really thought there were moments this week that I was like, I'm too old for this. I can't do this anymore. And somehow I pulled through, and I think a lot of it has to do with you guys.
We all did.
And all your encouragement. So
certainly one of the themes of going to the parties after the show, like every single human being I knew was like, oh my God, I'm so old. Like,
well, because we've all gotten old together.
Yeah.
We're all like in the same age bracket. And
it's like Pactor's party. It's just like everyone here is like over 35. Like it's our generation
of the industry.
Of the industry, and like we're the old people now.
We are.
We're
the party that the kids don't want to go to.
Yeah, because like, and we're the ones that like when the kid, when we used to start going to E3 and we'd see all this like, oh look at this, all the magazine guys, look at those guys.
Yeah.
They're so gray.
Yeah, you can look at like Peter Moore. You'd be like, wherever Peter Moore's going, I ain't going.
Right.
And now he's like standing next to us. So
Peter Moore's going somewhere they give you slippers when you go in. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's funny. So anyway, everybody, hopefully you guys have all recouped. It was great to meet some of the sifters live on the E3 show floor as well. It was really great to connect with some of you guys. So everyone have a great weekend. Catch up on all that E3 content on Sifted and use that E3 hub page. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. Game Face is up and out.